truth, lies, and political bullshit. They paid me to say that, so I said it, and that's about it. That's all I'm doing. What's going on, guys? Welcome back. It's been a little while here.
Yeah. Where you guys been? Florida or something?
I was in Florida. Yeah.
Life of Riley.
I went down.
You sound like you're retired.
Well, I mean, I'm retired. I went down for 3 weeks, and then I came home, and then I went down to Disney for.
I saw pictures of
I
that.
took my grandkids, my daughter. You know, it's a great trip.
That's awesome.
Making memories.
That's awesome. I love Disney. I think I saw a couple of pictures, and it looked like you guys are having a good time.
Yeah, we did. Weather 86 degrees every day. Then I come home here in my shorts, and I'm freezing my hats off.
It was freaking cold today. Cold. I was at Stewart's in
That wind
Albany.
was blasting.
I was at Stewart's in Albany, right on Fuller Road, and snow was coming down. I'm like, what the frig? This is April 4th. God damn it!
Welcome to New York.
And then a blast of snow and
I hated it.
just a little third winter in upstate New York.
So what the hell's on your mind tonight, there, Adam?
Oh, well.
Well, let's hear it.
Well, hopefully Sean wasn't watching his 401k while he was down in Disney.
I watched it today when it was up 400, and then I turned the channel. I said, finally get some of my money back. I turn it back, it's down 300.
Yeah, and that's where it ended, about 300,
Yeah.
380,
It's
I
been
think.
a terrible, terrible time. You know, I'm a Trump supporter right now, right? I'm a Democrat. Let's get one thing straight. But I'm a middle of the road guy, right? I'm my mother's Democrat. I'm my grandfather's Democrat. I'm not these far left that are pushing people off the cliff, man. But sometimes I wish Trump would just shut the hell up. Just go about his business. He doesn't always have to like inject something that makes himself look like he's the king of the world, right? And so today, you know, couldn't he have waited till after we got some of our money back to say, I'm putting 199% tariffs in China. You know, just wait until the market closes at 4, for Christ's sake. At least I could feel like I got some of my money back.
Save that for Friday.
Yeah, save it for Friday. Give me the weekend.
The problem is, and I, as much as I somewhat agree with you, but I don't obviously. But you know, you're a Democrat, you're never right, no matter what. But no, where I have a problem with this whole tariff thing, and I've spoken ad nauseum this week because everybody wants to talk about it. But my position is, the problem is we got to this point because the people who are most getting affected now were the ones telling us this was the right thing to do. You know, it's the globalists that wanted us to divest ourselves of manufacturing. It was the economists and the hyphenated letters behind their name that said, oh, it's a great thing that we have, you know, these third world countries doing manufacturing. And what happens, it destroys Main Street. The reason why we have rust belts in New York, rust belts in Ohio, is because manufacturing's left because we've let it leave because we never protected it. Every other country,
They sold it out.
every other country protects their manufacturing base except us. We're schlups.
That's why every other country has tariffs on us. And I keep saying that. I made a post and I said, if tariffs are so bad,
Why does everybody
why
else
does
have
every country in the world have them against us?
Yeah, and on top of that, the countries that were most greatly tariffing us, had the greatest tariffs on our products, were the ones that were also getting the most amount of financial aid from us.
Our friends.
Double dipping.
Canada, they're getting, what does Canada get? Billions of dollars. You're a Canadian, right?
Well, they
It's like the WNBA for America. It's a subsidy.
nice.
It's a subsidy.
The issue I have, I mean, Canada, you know me, I'm a guy of two hearts here. But the big problem with Canada is, one, they are very protectionist in their dairy industry and their agricultural and whatnot, and unfortunately, that hurt us. That hurt the United States. But again, if I think, and I said it before, the way Trump is being right now, he's going to win the tariff war hands down. We have the ability to move mountains when it comes to our economy, but the way he's speaking and the way he is being is damaging the American brand, where people, not governments don't care. They change, they come and go, they change like the wind. It is what it is. But the people of these countries, like Canada, like I said, we're just not buying anything made in America anymore.
It'd be tough to do that.
It would be
The
real
problem
tough.
is, well, you know what? Go to any liquor store in Canada today. There isn't one American liquor in
And
any
they're-
store,
and they're
and they
empty.
are They are not
And
buying it.
That's
Those
why,
shelves are pretty empty.
Yeah.
and that's why I'm saying it. See, the government can get into the piss and match with the government.
Yes.
It's the people when they finally stand up and say, "We've had enough." Right? Here's the thing. I think Trump is doing the right thing.
Yeah, I agree. I
And
agree.
sometimes, I was in government, right? And I used to say to the people, we're going to make some change. And the worst thing that I've ever heard to stop anybody from succeeding is that's not how we've done it before. And I used to say, well, that's not how we're going to do it now.
Correct.
And most change causes enormous pushback, regardless the size.
Because
of
people
the-
don't like change.
That's right. And
Yep.
they push back, and most people cave in to that pushback. And it never happens.
And he's
Donald
not.
Trump ain't going to cave in.
No.
And I sit home and I say, look, I know that for most people, this market's going to come back. This ain't that. In 2022, I lost 24% of my 401k.
Well, you're at 17% right now.
Well, here's the problem now. Now I'm retired.
Yes.
So now
that's
I
the big
draw
one.
from my pension.
Sure.
And so every time I'm taking money out,
You're not giving.
I'm giving and I'm not going to get it back.
You pull the equity out.
So if I had 10 shares of stock that are worth 100, I need 10. Now I got 8 shares. I need them to be 120,
Yeah.
right? And so for people like me, it's a little more scary.
Sure.
For people who got 20 years left, it's going to happen to them 15 more times.
Yeah.
At least.
So and for the people who are thinking about, look, and I'm lucky. I was a firefighter.
I mean, the stock market does this. It,
Right,
all,
it's always done.
it always goes
And
up.
there's always corrections. and
Unfortunately, if you're in that dip, it's tough. It's hard. It's scary.
my greatest concern is for people who are about to retire, that don't have a pension, that their whole pension is that 401k. I would tell you that if last week you were planning on to retire at the end of April, end of May, you ain't retiring because they lost 20-30% of their money. And you can look at the stock market and say it's only down 17%. Well, that's the global, that's the aggregate number, right? But if one of the stocks they have is doing really bad, it could be down 40% for Christ's sake. So I feel bad for those people. And that's why I said if Trump would have shut his mouth and went about his business, talked more presidential, and don't make it look like you're just being the tough guy in the room. Because I'm going to tell you something. I've seen a lot of tough guys in my life. And one-on-one, you wouldn't want to fight them. But they pushed you around enough where 6 guys jumped out and kicked the shit out of them, right?
Yeah.
That's what happens to a country. We could be the toughest country in the world till 40 other countries say, let's get the shit out of them. You can only fight so many people. So I'm praying to God that he's doing the right thing. I know he is. And we win this tariff battle.
Well, you can see it that
We already are.
We are because what they say,
Well, we are in one-
50 to 70 countries have come and say they want to negotiate, a way to circumvent the tariffs and or have an equalization of
But
tariffs,
now he's even saying that if you're saying you'll zero it out, that's not good enough for him.
like he did to Europe today.
Well,
Right,
yeah,
because now he's saying, well, but there's other fees and there's other this and there's other that.
Yeah.
How about this?
it's kind of like
Well,
the Ukraine thing.
the problem is, Sean, and I'm not doing it. I'm sorry,
Sorry.
but is that for so many years we've been the bank and we've run deficits because we were the bank.
I get it.
You know, like you said to South Korea today, hey, I'm glad you went to zero, but there's still a bill to pay because we're your defense.
And yeah, and
Yeah.
they owe us their freedom.
The problem is he's not a very good communicator.
No.
If he would say we want zero tariffs, so there's true global trade, right? Free trade amongst the world. You could sell your stuff, I can sell my stuff. The best product wins. I'm good with that. But
Yeah,
when they
yeah.
don't
Give me
know-
a freaking shot at your market, though.
Yeah, but give me a shot. If you're selling your cars here, we're selling our cars there.
Yeah.
Right? Now, listen, I got to be honest with you. I understand some of the arguments about the food coming from this country.
Yes.
Right when he goes, well, they won't let us sell
our
our
beef in
No
Australia.
shit, you're
Yeah.
sticking COVID-19 vaccinations in the beef. Now, I
Yeah.
don't know if they are. I'm just saying.
They
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
MNRA.
Well, or look at if you look at European or Canadian Fruit Loops, and you look at American Fruit Loops.
Yeah,
The dyes
the
and
list is this long
yeah.
versus this
Right.
long.
Yeah,
So-
I get that.
So I can understand when he says, look at
We don't want it.
Right. If you're trying to send that shit over here when we don't need it, don't bother. But a car, clothes, other
Well,
manufacturing products.
The kicker with that, it's the same goddamn company that makes it.
Well, that's what I'm
Kellogg's is Kellogg's, whether it's American or American Kellogg's or Canadian Kellogg's.
Well-
Yet the product in the box is totally different.
Well, the difference is in the United States, the box can sit there through, 45 years of
Yeah.
nuclear bombs,
Yeah.
and over there, after about 3 months, they have to replace it, whether it's eaten or not.
Correct.
So they're saying, well, United States, they don't care. I give it to Mikey. He eats it.
Mikey, he eats it. That's what you give an 80-year-old
Yeah,
woman for her
yeah.
birthday.
I mean,
Mikey, he eats
They're
tell you?
What do they tell you? Cockroaches
Sean.
and Twinkies will be alive after the nuclear bomb, right? It's just crazy, but I think he's doing the right thing. I think the guy needs to be a little more clear. Even some of the greatest investors in the world are concerned. Because
Well,
it's not clear.
I personally don't trust any of them.
Well, I don't listen. Whether
Or the politicians.
here's why I trust them when they come out and say that, because they're talking about their own money. So when they start losing their own money, that's when they really start talking.
Yeah, but
about,
remember how
Those
they
are the
ma- how,
guys
yeah,
that
but
sell
how,
it day in and day
yeah, but
out.
how did they make their money? By screwing Main Street.
Look,
That's the problem.
Look, we are a society where everybody has opportunities. I'm never going to be the guy that goes,
Okay.
the billionaires. Well, look, the billionaires are good for a lot of stuff, right? They employ thousands
Sure.
and thousands of people, right? I don't care how many billions you have. I just care about, can I take care of my family, pay my bills, and have a good life? And right now, the tariffs are going to move this country into the right place.
Yes.
Manufacturing is going to come back. Job growth
Or at
is
least
gonna
give
come back.
manufacturing a level playing field.
$7 trillion supposedly in new businesses coming to the United States.
Yeah.
That's
Huge.
all good and well. I'm happy for that.
Well, again, I want to see that because I want to see
I wanna
follow
see it
up.
too.
Because look at Foxconn was supposed to invest, I think it was $10 billion in Wisconsin or Nebraska, one of the wheat basket states, to build this giant semiconductor plant, and end up at Wisconsin. It ended up being 1/10 of the size it was eventually being
Yeah, there's
going to
no
be.
doubt
So
that
I want to see the follow through. You can tout it all you want, but I want to see it come
Yeah,
to fruition.
But the one other half of this thing that is directly, and well, I say directly, indirectly, is the market, right? People in the market spook very easy. And when there's no real communication and they don't know what the hell's going on,
Well, that's all it is
They're just-
emotions
of
and
course it is.
fears. Like,
Well,
it's
that's-
really based on nothing
it's
more than that.
millionaires pulling
Yeah.
their money for cash, and I don't blame them.
Because it's not income derived. It's not
right.
productivity derived. It's just speculative, 100%. Because numbers haven't even come out for manufacturing.
have-
Hasn't come out for sales. They have not. These are non-driven numbers.
The market's still ahead.
We
It
should-
ain't- it
we
ain't
should
even
check
below.
the-
So well,
Correct.
the funny thing is I posted on Facebook yesterday. If you invested in a year ago in Tesla, and Tesla's gone through a roller coaster as you would, you're still up 40% on that
Yeah.
stock year over year.
The market is still up.
Yeah, the market
still-
is higher now than it was a year ago.
We
this
still
time.
haven't dipped into what we put in,
Yeah.
but sadly.
But when you were here, now you're here.
Sadly,
No matter
all the
what.
stuff you've made has disappeared.
Sure.
It's heart wrenching, right? I mean, I look at a guy like me, without talking about numbers, I can say that based on what I take each month, I'm 20 years of lost income as of today. Now, if I can get 15 years of it back, I'll be a very happy man. Because I don't take a
You're
ton.
not gonna live 20 years. Jesus,
Well, I will
look
live
at
20
you.
years. I'm in great shape. I just lost 58 pounds. How
He's
about
wearing
that?
shorts.
Maybe between
See?
your ears.
The man ran here.
Truth, lies, and political bullshit right
Yeah.
there. Listen to him.
Listen,
The guy-
it's right.
Listen,
It's
the
right
guy-
in the name of his podcast.
the guy-
Bullshit.
The guy that's in the Fruit Loops with the back coloring on and something.
I don't eat
taste
Fruit
good.
Loops. I'll
They
take the
taste good.
bacon though.
Well, listen, I hope I live to get my last fucking dime. That's all I don't want anybody getting any of my money at all. But that's the one thing that bothers
No,
me.
and I understand that.
Failure
of
to
course.
communicate well. Warren
But he's
Buffett-
never been a communicator.
No, but there's certain things you can just, I used to say you can bullshit somebody for about 15 minutes. After that, they're going to catch on to you,
We're
right?
gonna figure it
He
out.
can bullshit really good. And
For a
even
lot
if-
longer than 15 minutes.
No, because when he goes on and
But
does
you know what?
rants, I
But-
can tell after a while, I go, this is just bullshit, man.
Yeah,
Just-
but you know what? I don't think it's bullshit with him.
There's a reason why he sold
believes
all his stock.
he
a couple
believes
years
what he's saying. What's that?
Or about a
He
year
ain't
ago,
stupid.
he sold like a ton of his stocks.
they all did.
He's sitting on a pile of cash,
Warren Buffett.
ready to jump.
The one guy that's ahead of everything, he's up 9% while everybody else is dying. He's
Yeah.
at 9%. But what did he do? A couple months ago, he pulled out $350 billion
Yeah.
of cash. The market's crashing because everybody who has that kind of wealth is just pulling their money out and they're putting it away and they're
They're
investing.
going to invest in the dip.
Well, right now they're investing in 5% stocks and bonds, and they're investing in.
But you
CDs and
guys,
cash.
you realize that the stock market crashes by design.
Oh yeah,
It's 100% by design,
think it
and
does.
I'll tell you why it's by design.
because the money
Because-
isn't worth.
No. What it is as the market dips and the economy slows, interest rates, the Fed lowers interest rates, and for every point that the Fed lowers the interest rates, there's a big problem that the government has this year, is we're $36 trillion in debt. A third of that debt needs to be refinanced in June.
9 trillion.
So what they're saying is, for every percentage point that the market that the Feds adjust the interest rate, we save $900 billion.
Trump's going to
But see,
refinance.
That's
lower.
what he wants to do, because because what's happening now is we are going to spend more on the interest
debt.
alone on debt than we do on Social Security and national defense.
But doesn't that put a light bulb over your head?
And this
And
is
ask your question.
why I don't.
Trump dropping the market? Is Trump doing these things so
There's a
that
lot
he can
of-
refinance?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's a
so
method
if
to
that's
the
the case, I
madness.
think that's a terrible thing to do to the American people, because you know
It's
what?
got to be done.
Well, I don't
It's
know.
going to happen. It's
It
either
has
that
to
or it
happen.
drops to zero.
At least you're doing it a structured drop as opposed to it crashing,
Well,
which
I
is
don't
what's
think
going to
he's doing
happen.
Anything structured. I think the market is reacting. The rich people are reacting. The little guy with the 401k can't react. I can't do nothing.
We never.
If you have 50 million in stocks, you know, you got Apple, you could sell them off at the highest level, and you could pocket that money. You could pay 15% on your money. I can't do shit with my 401k. First of all, I take it out, I got to pay a penalty if I'm not 59 and a half. Number two, if I take it out at whatever bracket I'm in, if I'm in 28% bracket, I got to pay 28% on the money. The 401k has been the biggest scam to the American people in the history. They took away defined pensions, okay?
Social
because they
Security's up
wanted-
there too.
Well, yeah, Social Security is up there for the
Yeah.
amount. But they take away defined pensions so that big corporations didn't have to have it on the books as a loss, because you always had to count the pension as a loss, okay? So they couldn't borrow money. They couldn't get as rich as they needed to be. They had bad, sheets.
I don't think that's exactly.
Oh, it is.
Absolutely not.
You can. 95% of the people 65 have 200,000 or less in their 401k. How are they going to retire?
Again, who's
It's the biggest scam in the world.
why is it a scam?
Because you can't live on a 401k.
Then you have to put more in.
Well, you got to live too.
Well,
Not,
I
not
mean,
with the rate of
No,
inflation. either.
there's no way in the world. That somebody
but
who's-
again, a company, if you think a company can do a pension program today, you're out of your freaking mind.
What do you mean? You got Bezos who makes 190 billion a year.
So what?
So what?
So what?
So what do you mean? So,
So what?
So if you're the little guy- if you're the
not
little guy watching this show, they
sorry.
can afford to have a pension.
No, they cannot.
Bullshit.
No, they cannot.
Bullshit.
Absolutely not.
That's why people are struggling, because the beliefs that you have, like, oh, you can't. have a
Absolutely
pension.
not. So do you know why GM, Chrysler, Ford are going out of business?
Yeah,
because
because
they're
they're-
retirement programs.
No.
Absolutely. It is the largest. Listen, you were in government. What's the largest? What is the
What it
largest?
says on the books and what's the reality is two different
No,
things. Yes,
I'm
it is,
sorry,
because
yeah.
in government there's an accounting practice that you have to follow. That is not even the true number of the true dollars that you put away.
Sean, my father-in-law worked for Ford, all right, for 27 years.
Yeah, had a good retirement, didn't
He was retired for 30.
Yeah.
How is a company going to afford to pay somebody in
Because they
retirement?
invest their
No,
money.
again. So
Same thing
they
with
guess
the state. Same
They
thing with
invest
all
in
these.
money.
and why does the state have so much problems with money?
Because they blow money, not their pension.
No, because the pension programs are not designed to
How
sustain
did
people
you not-
for 30
That is-
freaking
Why
years.
don't you tell me how the pension's paid for in the state?
That is why all new hires are all.
No, I wanna hear.
are all completely different than like.
Sure, because
who pays the pension in the state of New York?
counties do.
No.
Absolutely.
No, they don't. You do. People do.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, no
property
shit.
taxes.
And how do they pick that? Through the county, Sean.
No.
Yes, it is.
The city doesn't pay its
Right. Yeah.
No, the
Absolutely.
city doesn't pay its pension through the county.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
city sends a check
Yeah. Through
to the state
yeah,
pension system
okay.
in New York.
And the county, okay, Center County sends money to
Well, because
New
the
York.
county has its own employees.
Again, every place gets it from the
Well,
taxpayer.
When exactly, I just said that. So the state ain't broke. The state ain't paying for
Sure
it.
it is. So no, you're right. The state will never go broke. So I do is keep raising
Yeah, but you
taxes,
make
Sean.
it sound like the state
No,
is
the problem.
broke.
Yes, the problem
How
is
can it be- wait a minute.
this,
Hear me out.
because why do you think the
How
state
does the state get broke from paying for a pension
Well,
that
they
the people
spend
are
more than
paying?
they spend more than they make?
Well, no, because New York State is the only pension system that's solvent right now. It's the only one. California's billion. I'm going to tell you why. They're hurting because in New York State we have one person in charge of the pension system. It's the state comptroller,
Yeah.
Tom DiNapoli.
Yeah.
Nobody else can touch that money. In every other state, the legislature overspends, goes into the pension system, pulls the money out, never pays it back, and then they grow in debt and debt.
Again,
So the
that
reality-
had-
Like
that
you
had-
did with Social Security.
That's right. So the reality is, it's the
No.
spending. Yes, it is. I was in government.
That doesn't
I know
matter if
it
you're in
is.
government. And what I'm
What do you
saying,
know?
I don't need to be in government to know how
Well, how
things
do you know
work.
how the government pension works?
Because quite simple. If somebody's paying
Let
in
me
for
see yours.
if somebody's paying in for 20 years, Sean, and they collect for 30, they're taking a deficit out of the county,
Yeah, but how
out
about
of
the
the
guy that
state.
pays in for 5 and dies?
That's a minority, and it's
not.
yes, it is.
No, it's not, because the average person lives about 11 years.
Because
after
you know
they
what
retire.
happens? Then the spouse gets the freaking benefits.
No, it depends.
Yeah, again,
It depends.
they don't put no money in, they still
No,
get
no,
it.
it
I'm
all
sorry.
depends.
The
It
problem is the system is no longer set up. All these system of pensions were set up where people live a couple of years outside of retirement.
No,
That's what, absolutely.
No, they got rid
Oh,
of
my
the pension
God.
system and convince you that if you
No.
put money in the bank and get 3% on your cash, that somehow when you retire, Social Security, which was a scam in itself, is going to make you have the wealth. to
Social
live your
Security
life.
was designed to
Which
keep
people
people
are living
alive.
longer than
Correct.
Most people are getting welfare that collect Social Security.
yeah.
So you're paying welfare, and the government, instead of giving them pensions, giving them free money on welfare.
Well, Doge
They
just
don't pay tax
discovered
on
how many people are collecting Social Security.
Yeah. No,
You have to pay taxes on your
these
pension.
pension programs were designed for people
I
to
don't have a
live
pension.
5 years outside.
When you
I
work
don't
for
have
yourself,
I don't have a pension.
You better hope
No,
you
I
stay well.
understand you don't have a pension, and I'm thinking you should. I'm
No.
thinking businesses should. If they can invest in money where they're worth hundreds of billions, money that we could have never fathomed 20 years ago, they can put away a pension for their employees, even if the employee has to pay towards that pension. A defined pension.
So how much is enough, Sean? That's the problem.
Well, I don't
what do you
know.
need for? Oh well, he only has
Well, wait a minute.
$1,000. Well, that's
No,
what his salary
I'm not
earned.
talking about how much is enough. A 401k should be a supplement to your pension. If the go- if,
A
if I-
401k is a supplement to somebody's Social Security.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's Social Security, what, $2,200 a month? How are they gonna live? Now they're getting welfare, so I'm still paying for them. Half the people that I know that
Yeah.
retired
Yeah.
from places that didn't have a pension.
Did they put
collect
money?
food
Did they
stamps.
put money
Well, they
aside?
put as much as they could. They have 3 kids, they have whatever.
Again, I have 3 kids. I have bills, and I put a lot of my money away for
Well,
retirement.
maybe you make more.
No, that's the first thing I put in
What
before.
happens to somebody who doesn't have the skills you have? What about an unskilled worker?
Again.
What about somebody working at Walmart?
There's
What
a lot
about
of
somebody
those.
work? Yes, there's a lot of people that
a lot
don't
of
have the
those.
means.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not trying to say that. First of all, if a corporation can match your 401k by 6% a year, then they can put away money into a pension system.
I disagree.
Well, that's okay. That's why we're here.
Well, maybe instead of 401. Well, 401k though has
401k
has the ability to rise.
What's up, Jeremy? How you doing?
But a 401k has the ability to lose. So,
You don't think your pension program is ability to
No.
lose? Absolutely. That fund
no,
loses
when
money.
you have a defined pension, you can't.
But the fund loses money. What happens? The state has to kick in money to fill it in. Absolutely.
The state, you keep saying the state, the county. That's not how it works. In the city of Cohoes,
If
it's
the,
not how it
okay,
works.
if the comptroller,
He oversees the money.
okay, and if the fund loses money that year, like right now, what happens? They got to pull money from someplace
No.
else to fill in the gaps.
Let me explain. Let
Absolutely.
me explain to him while you're telling me what you don't know.
Okay, whatever.
Here's the deal. If a firefighter, when I came on the job, they paid,
A guy that's lived off the dole his whole life. Go
no,
ahead. Tell me how it
I
works.
risked my life my whole life.
I agree.
How many times you risk yours?
I risk my life every day working
Yeah.
for myself.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Not a
So-
fireman though.
A lot
I'll
of
give-
crazy drivers out
That's
there.
right.
But there's a lot of cases. You
See that?
Democrats
See
going
that?
after me. We're going after
I
Tesla.
hope you don't drive a Tesla right now.
Boom.
No, listen, you're absolutely right, though. The taxpayer pays. But
Yes.
the way it goes is this:
Educate me, Sean.
a firefighter goes to work, he makes X amount of money.
Yeah.
Okay, a percentage of that check has to be paid to the retirement system. When I came on the job, it was 0. 10 years into my job, it was 0. Okay, now you're absolutely right, because the pension lost money. Politicians decided all these other people could get into the pension system and steal money that are not even public employees. Okay, every time the pension loses, they call the city back and say, well, now it's 10% of their check, 11%, 12%. So
And how much of that does the city kick in?
the city raises tax.
Hence, a business can't just raise unlimited money
Sure.
selling. No, they cannot.
They're doing it now.
They won't.
raise
No,
products.
what happens is they go out of business. Absolutely. they go out of
Amazon's
business.
not going out of business. GE's not going out of business.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
But
Okay.
but the small mom
yeah.
and pop.
Well,
can't-
Yeah.
I'm not talking about
which is the backbone of
G-
America.
G-
You heard me say corporations should be paid.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's different. I
I'm
mean,
not
That's
talking
not
about
different.
little.
but even then, going to Home
You're going to
Depot
tell me
and buy-
General Motors can afford to pay unlimited pension? Eventually, they got to sell more cars, and if
Yeah.
they can only put the price on
They
that
just
car so high.
negotiated a deal and it was pretty damn good, wasn't it?
There's a reason though that
Well-
a pickup truck costs $60,000 now, where a few years ago it cost
And
35.
but
that's
again,
all
again,
pensions.
That's not necessarily pensions, but
I mean,
but that just goes.
No,
to the cost.
but that's
So
the
guy
big
that-
one.
The guy that
Benefits.
wanted to buy a
To
brand
negotiate
new
wages,
F-150.
health care. There's a lot of scams in this country that cost a lot of money. Health care.
no, the biggest freaking scam
Healthcare
is
is
a
a
union.
massive scam.
Well, I'm a big union supporter, so I don't believe they're scams.
I don't know
They
what
are
I pay
scams.
a month in healthcare, but you know how many times I've been to the doctor in about the last 10 years?
Why does an X-ray
Twice
cost
for a
$500
physical.
when it's 1,000 years old, right?
Like I
Really?
should get a rebate back for not fucking
Healthcare-
using my healthcare,
Healthcare, insurance,
but I'm forced to have it.
all these companies
Well, you're
are
not
wealthy
forced.
beyond belief. Life insurance companies, they're the richest in the world.
That's one thing I can never understand. Why
Which
banks?
is meant to be used throughout your life, not at your death.
Why is it banks, insurance companies, health insurance? They have enough money
Forever.
to. Well, the thing is, they put their names on buildings. They fund sports teams. Yet they deny.
Stadiums.
Yet,
They won't fund a pension.
they'll or no, but they'll deny somebody's $400 medication. That aggravates me.
It's not even that.
And then you get that guy in New York.
It's the fact that in the United States, where we talk about free trade, the United States of America allows a pharmaceutical company to sell drugs at sometimes 1,000% over what they sell them to in other countries.
Just in
I'm
Canada,
gonna use
Well, there's a reason for that.
what is it?
So what happens is, let's say
we created.
Pfizer, not Pfizer's not good. It's not American company. Give me a good American.
Well, every pharmaceutical company. is
Moderna.
all over the world.
No, Moderna's Italian. Let's say,
they're all-
let's say no. There's a reason why. Let's say Johnson and Johnson comes up with a ivermectin. I'm gonna make it up. I don't know which one.
Yeah.
All right. So they want to sell it in Canada. Canada says, I'm only paying X numbers of dollars for your drug.
Yeah.
Johnson says, absolutely not. So what happens is Canada says, okay, then I don't recognize your patent. We're going to reverse engineer it, and we're going to sell it to our people. You think that's right?
Well, I
The
don't know.
problem is we want all these
Sounds like
miracle,
China.
we want all these miracle drugs to cure everything, but the company can't make its money back for all the years and years
Look,
and years of
making its
research.
money back and robbing people. Look,
Oh, I
when an
don't disagree with you
When an
there.
EpiPen went from $5
Yes.
to 500.
Yes.
When a drug that was 20 years old that was used for one thing was repurposed for cancer and went to $1,000.
Yes, I agree.
Listen, when I was in the county legislature,
I agree with that.
I think I.
Oh, well,
told
look, ivermectin. Ivermectin, it was a wonder drug for a lot of things, and they made it illegal for doctors
On the
to
list of
prescribe it.
essential medicines.
Yeah.
because they
Can't
don't
make
want
money.
you- Yeah, they can't make no money.
It's an
When I was
old
in-
drug.
Listen,
Well, with that, so back during COVID, if you went on the CDC's website, ivermectin was number 2 on the things to take, like if you had COVID. And the reason why they blackballed it, that and what's the other one? Hydroxychloroquine, is if they have an alternative medicine, then they couldn't push the jab.
Of course.
look at
They
everything. was
couldn't
about
push the jab if you have a good alternative avenue. So they blackballed it, said it doesn't work, it's horse paste, it's this shit. Either way, it's all made in freaking
If
China.
everybody who has any brains didn't get a taste of what government really wants, which is to control its people,
Absolutely.
COVID was the true example to say, let's see.
Well,
how far-
let's be careful how far we go down this hole, because
let's see how
we
far
can
we
get
go.
pulled off the.
Well, I don't know. They haven't pulled me off.
We can still talk.
Yeah.
I don't think they're doing that right now. I
Well,
think
they had it happened to our show one time. We were talking about that.
Well,
and
me
they-
too.
they
A couple
called it
years
off,
ago,
yeah.
they shut us down.
Are we on YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh, well, they'll do it.
That's
Well,
why.
that's Google. Right.
No, we're on YouTube. Yeah, Google.
Google.
yeah.
Google pulls you out for anything. You
Yeah,
swear to-
yeah.
But
Oh, that got pretty
I
heated
guess
there.
the bottom.
Sean.
I guess the bottom line is. Yeah, but I love you.
Of course.
Got a debate with you, right? I guess the bottom line is this: heartburn medicine was the number 1 cost to Albany County, $4 million a year,
Jesus.
and I believe it was Nexium at the time. Okay, So,
Well, they should just give the omeprazole. It's a
well, they
generic
didn't
version.
have, but they didn't have it at the time.
Oh,
Because that ends up becoming the generic for, you know.
Okay.
At the time, there was Prilosec, that became, and then there was, and there's this debate, because the county can't force you to take one, right? So if your doctor writes the one for A, you gotta buy the one for A. But the moral of the story was this. I found out it was made in Ireland, where everybody gets heartburn from drinking too much beer all day, right? But it's made in Ireland. And it was costing them in Ireland pennies to buy it. And over here, it was costing $597.
because we subsidize Ireland.
But that was my argument.
Yes,
Why does the United States of America allow a pharmaceutical?
because we're schleps.
That's what I was trying to get to.
Yes.
We don't have to be a company or a country that allows companies to say, oh, we're broke because, you know, how you broke? You're selling one medicine that cost you 4 cents for $580 a script. Just
Yeah,
the
but,
Liberty
but
County alone, $4
remember,
million.
remember what you said. It was an Irish company.
No, it was
It was
made
an Ireland company.
Yeah, it's Pfizer.
Yeah.
They're all over the world.
No, but it's still an Ireland based, an England, a UK based company, and they set the rules.
No.
So this is the rules for your sale in your country. That's what happens. That's what happens. And then they're going to say, well, you don't want pay. You don't pay. But what happens? America says, of course we'll pay it because we're
got
stupid.
heartburn.
Because we're stupid.
Well,
so then we pay the $500 a pill. So then Ireland can say, we can get ours for free now.
Well, I end up there's another thing the United
That's
States
the
does
problem.
that nobody else does, and it's very complicated, and I won't waste a lot of your time. But there's a pharmaceutical manager. He's the guy in between.
Yeah.
Okay, the pharmaceutical company and the pharmacy. And the pharmaceutical managers are the thieves
Oh,
that operate
absolutely.
in the dark cover of the night.
They're the ones that give all the kickbacks.
Well,
and
they're the
everything else.
ones that set the price, get the
Yeah.
rebates, all of it goes back to them. They're the ones who buy all the drugs and get it shipped from Ireland to the United States. And it doesn't come in little bottles, it comes in these big, huge packages. They actually have people that pop them out
And they repackage them.
and repackages them to sell them to the pharmacies here. And so the middleman is making all the money. The pharmacies are making enough money where they don't want to get in a fight with the pharmaceutical managers, right? If we got rid of that middleman, which is just a bunch of robbers stealing from the people, you would be paying.
They're like these freaking day traders.
Yes, you would be paying a few dollars for these pills instead of paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
But I think the issue with that there is a perfect example of what Trump's doing with the tariffs. This is the way it's been for years and
Yeah.
years. A lot of the systems that we have in place right now, we're all part of the Marshall Plan after World War II. A lot of things changed globally after World War II, and they never stopped. So what happens? Yes, we probably allowed European companies and allowed them to overcharge us because it would help their economy rebuild
We had to rebuild
and whatnot as part of the Marshall Plan.
Yeah, but
But what happens is it never changed. So now they're just like, oh, we got to take
And it only
advantage of it.
expanded.
Yes. For example, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of the freight, mail specifically, out of China is paid for by the U.S. tax dollar. So we pay freight. That's why when you can get something from Temu for like free shipping, but if it's you got to return it, it's like $45 to return it because now you're paying the freight. We pay it both ways. But that was something to help China back then to rebuild after World War II. It's never changed. So Trump wants to change all these things, and people are really pissed off. They're like, whoa, for all
they
these.
don't understand.
That's right, because I had this.
Well, everybody's an
An
economist right now.
yeah.
No, but the problem is people don't know that. I mean, to that point, when I argue with my friends in Canada,
You don't
and I tell them, look, you guys get $7 million a year in foreign aid from Canada, from the United States to Canada. We do not. And you go to government.gov, and there is, and they even give you what it pays for. They're like, we never knew that. I'm like, there's a lot of things you guys don't know that we're stuck paying.
Right here in the United States, Amazon has a deal with the post office. They're not paying what you would pay to ship things. That's why they get free shipping and
Get that bulk
Yeah,
order.
you know, I
Yeah.
don't have a problem with the United States helping United States companies. I
Correct.
really don't. And at the end of the
Never
day,
did.
I got a Prime membership, and I'm really happy that I can get stuff delivered for free. So
Even same day.
even the same day. And matter of fact, I got a thing the other day, and it said if you ship it late night,
Yeah.
it would be there tonight. And I'm like, how can it
Well,
be there
yeah,
tonight?
now-
Ship
now
by
it's
11
great.
o'clock.
Yeah,
Now it's
yeah.
ready to go home.
Yeah, it's really cool. So I don't mind paying that.
Like, how the hell did you get that spatula? Like, how do you have that in a warehouse?
But tell me that's not going to destroy brick and mortar places.
Well, it does.
Look at-
As soon as you start getting stuff
I think
instantaneously.
one of the problems is, the paradigm shift, the world changes. I mean, just think about 100 years ago when people were making a fortune doing certain labors that don't even exist today, right?
Well-
And you start hearing these people talk about robots.
Yeah.
Look at it. I think the biggest creep in the world is Bill Gates, right? I wish that the plane would fall on his head.
No, we don't wish ill on everybody.
Okay,
Just
well, I do.
He's
Because I think he's trying.
just a farmer.
Well,
He's
he's
a poor
telling
farmer.
he's telling people that he wants to see the world population decline.
He does. Yeah.
he does.
So basically, he's saying genocide, kill people. We let them die. We don't worry about giving them medicine. We don't. That's what they say without saying it. But what else? What
Well, he
is-
does. He did say it, and in the same breath, he's talking about vaccines. Like that's why he got kicked out of Africa and India.
Yeah, he's just a bad man, and
Yeah.
people buy into his shit. I was just watching.
Because he's going to sell us that 3D processed meat while he's eating
Well,
the
he's
freaking
eating Big Macs.
USDA. Yeah, the real stuff. Yeah, sure.
Well, look what they
Real
just did in Florida. Right? Florida just passed a law that basically has come out and said that the shit that they pour into the sky.
Oh, weather manipulation,
manipulate the weather.
They even
It's
said it now.
true.
The chemtrails
We all know
are
it's
true.
true. I'm thinking to
Cloud
myself,
seeding, yeah.
Yes. Look, at the only global warming issue we have in this country is the people
Man-made.
man-made putting shit in the sky
Yeah.
to make it rain.
Yeah.
Well, they're actually doing like Bill Gates wants to do it, or is
He
doing
wants
it
to block the sun.
to block the
The
sun.
guy's a moron. Who in the right mind owns the sun where you can just say I'm blocking the sun? If we got up tomorrow and said we're going to block the sun, what the hell? What would happen?
Good
now?
song, by the way.
And now we're in a global cooling.
He'll call back 5 more times because I hung up. But think about that. Now you got the ice age coming again. It just why do these people think because they have billions of dollars they have a right to control the whole world? These guys are dangerous. It's not just Bill Gates. It's that whole society of these crazy people that are talking about, global depopulation. Is that the nice word they use?
Yeah.
That's global depopulate. What does that mean?
Why don't you start with yourself?
Well, there's
Well, that's what I said. I hope the plane. I didn't say you want him to die. I just want the plane to fall on his freaking head so he wakes up.
powers that be. Yeah.
I don't think that's
There's
what
too
happened, though.
There's too many of us. We're taking up too much
Well,
air.
there's too much air. I mean, I'm watching TV, and they're really trying to convince me that the world's going to cave in because Kyle's farted. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, I just farted 3 fucking times, man. I've been drinking. I'm helping the
Oh,
world.
those Brussels sprouts.
Cows are the reason, but they took 35 jets to go to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's the problem.
like AOC.
Yeah.
They showed her today. She's out there calling oligarchies and these people with wealth.
Oh, the oligarchy tour.
Yeah. No, now they caught her on the plane. She's in first class.
Yeah.
I mean,
What's good for you, what's good for me is not good for you. Yeah,
With
yeah.
the bought and paid for audience.
Yeah.
it's
Crazy.
Same thing with these ridiculous protests. These organic protests.
The hands-off protest.
Oh my God! And then you see all these people. Did you see the video of them all leaving at like noon?
Yeah, like they're like time to
They're
punch
like,
out and
"Oh,
leave.
well, I'm only paid till noon.
Look at
See
that.
ya.
A smart guy would say, God, that bus had to be about 8,000 to rent. Right? Those signs are all the same. Nice shirts everybody's got on.
Oh, you brought the wrong sign.
Somebody
Somebody paid for all that.
on Facebook
George Soros paid for
was
that.
on Facebook. I call it TV because I watch it more than my television. But the girl gets caught up in a conversation and admits that she got paid.
Yeah.
Right? She got $100 to show up, $100 if she asked a question, or a question was asked to her and she had the answer, and $25 if they brought their own sign, because they were getting caught making the signs where everybody had the same sign,
Yeah.
right? So you can't have
They were
this.
reusing the same signs. for all
Yeah,
these
you
different-
can't have this like arbitrary, protest where all the signs are the same. How would that be possible? They all came from the same printer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we saw it at like the Tesla protests.
Right.
They were
But
reusing
she
shit
came
from
in. She
different.
said we all got
protests.
about $250. Well, you know that Soros and
Yeah.
all them people.
And if you're 18 years old, somebody says, "Hey,
Sure.
$250 to show up for a couple hours, or
The
go to
kicker-
a Kamala rally," hell yeah, I'll take that.
You had these guys, these men on the streets, and they were asking him questions. They had no idea why they were even there.
None of them.
None of them.
None of them.
What you hear? Oh, we hate Trump. What is it you hate about Trump? He's just a bad guy. Well, what does it specifically do? I don't want to have this conversation anymore. And they walk away. It's
Yeah.
like,
I think
They
the
start
best
blocking
part-
cameras.
The best part, none of them knew.
none of them
None of
knew.
them knew. Same thing with all these people destroying. Musk is a pain in the ass, right? And we talked about this like 3 weeks ago on the podcast, that if they would have done it a little different, let Musk and his team find the stuff, hand it off to somebody else who's more of a political figurehead that says, okay, after we went through the IRS, we have 58,000. Right? A little
Yeah.
more like professional.
Like put a Caroline Levitt out there of Doge,
Yes.
and you do a weekly, and it's been checked, triple checked.
Absolutely. That would have
yeah.
been a far better job. So I can see why they all attack him, right? If you keep attacking somebody enough.
That and the chainsaw thing really
that
did
was
him in.
stupid,
That was
right?
dumb.
But if you keep attacking
That was a
somebody,
gift.
people are going to start
Javier
believing it.
Milei, I think, gave it to him.
Yeah, one of
Yeah,
the.
yeah.
The
But,
Argentinian president.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing, the craziest protester I saw, which I thought was so dumb, was an anti-Musk protester in a freaking wheelchair, calling him a fascist Nazi. I'm thinking, you stupid mofo, you'll be the first one he would help with his Neuralink so you can walk again, and you're calling him a fascist idiot.
Look at-
What is wrong with you, you stupid
We're
idiot?
protesting billionaires
I mean-
and stuff, but there's a thousand other billionaires out there. They don't care about them.
And this
All these
guy's
other
making
car
something that'll help you walk.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say within 5 years, a lot of these, debilitating diseases, muscular and
Dystrophy.
are going to be fixed by him with his Neuralink. I mean,
Not if
crazy.
Gates gets his way.
No.
Yeah, people are just following and what you're seeing right now is panic in DC. That's why
That's what it is. It's all driven by that.
Elon Musk and Trump, they are pulling the funding from all the the USAID and all the this is how they were organizing
Following
all
their-
these protests and all this crap. So all their funding has been taken away. This is you're looking at an animal backed into a corner of a cage, and they're just they're just going at it. You know what I mean? This is panic in DC. You're witnessing panic. That's why they're so vocal, even though you can watch video after video on YouTube of Schumer talking about tariffs and Pelosi talking about protecting the border.
The
And all this
Democrats
crap.
the Democrats are good at one thing. They just it doesn't matter how embarrassing. They just keep saying the same thing over.
Repetitiveness.
and over.
Eventually,
And then morons in the world buy into it. And what is one of the biggest faults of humans, right? There's a lot of humans that are just jealous people. And so it's easy to turn everybody against a billionaire.
sure.
They're jealous that he's got $1 billion and they don't make $1 billion.
Well,
You just
look at
lost
yourself.
$300 million today.
You're mad because they have better pension funds than you.
No. You heard what I said. I want you all to have the same pension fund.
I want a better one.
That's the issue.
I'll work harder.
I think the issue is people should all have some way to live, and I don't think they can. I don't,
Yeah.
You don't have
No.
to agree, but I mean that's fine. But I think people need to be able to look at the end of your life. You should be able to live a better life than you did all the time you were trying to work and raise kids and do everything else. Right? There should be a point where you go, I don't have to work no more. I don't have to worry no more. I can live a good life. I wish Social Security
Well,
did that.
Unfortunately.
to that point though, and I mean, I do. I like
Say
to.
it.
I like to argue because I like to argue, but I do have an issue with seniors that live in poverty.
Yeah, and there's tons of
yeah.
tons.
Uh,
And contrary, to our argument, our debate. I love it.
Oh, we can argue.
No,
It's
no,
okay.
to our
I'm
argument
okay with
debate.
arguing.
No, to our argument debate.
Because I don't hold
It's-
anything personal. I still love you,
Jesus Christ,
so.
I love you. I wouldn't be here if I didn't
Yeah.
love you. I'd have jumped over the table. I think I can kick your ass still.
You're getting close.
But
He was getting pretty animated.
You're up on that.
Yeah.
well, I got to get up to yell because you got me in a seat that my balls are all the way to the floor and my chest.
Oh, you
I look like a
you're wearing
midget.
shorts.
That was, yeah, really. It's cold down there.
Contrary to the 401k, a lot of people just don't have the funds to put in. And I know many of them. You have two key people that work at Walmart. Just because they don't have the skills and they can't get out of the rut, right?
But there comes a, but I understand that, Sean.
There comes a point where they're old.
No, but
They don't have the money.
there comes a point where personal accountability and responsibility are what you make of yourself.
I get it.
I didn't have any formal education. I didn't have any special skills. I just had my back and my brawn. I mean,
Use it while you got it.
yes.
But
There's a reason why I
But dude,
I look
just
as
because you
ugly as I am.
just because
Because
you
I
don't
went
have no
through fucking
education
shit
doesn't
sticks.
mean you're not a smart man.
I know that,
There's a
but what
lot
I'm
of-
saying
look
is,
at, some of the richest people in the world didn't go to, weren't in high school.
no, I understand that.
There's
But
just-
the
there's
point
just-
is, you have, again, there are a lot of people that you and I know are in the predicament they're in because they are low motivation people.
Look at
So at what point do you say, hey, that's what you chose to do your whole
the
life?
problem is, I think the minority of the people that I know who are hurting are not lazy people that
But you said the minority of the
the
people.
majority of people that I know are hard workers that just don't have in that class, in that category. They are hard workers. They get up every day, they raise their kids, they go to work, they're doing the best they can. They don't have a lot of skills. When you're a elected official in county government is really the social safety network for the poorest people, right? You deal with the oldest, the frailest, the poorest, the single mothers who are struggling. When you see enough of them, you realize that there's just a lot of people who are in a bad way, and they're never going to get better waiting for Social Security, right? If you and I were able to take the $70 a week you were putting in with the match from the employer, 140 a week, can you imagine if we could have put that into our 401k? Instead, at the end of my career, how much do you think you're going to get from
It's a fraction.
Social Security? $2,200 a month.
Yeah.
If you were to put $140 a week away for 30, you'd have $7, $8, $9 million.
Mhm.
And then a 401k has a value because now the employer's paying, you're paying. You put,
Okay, I'll give you an example. And here's a something that I did with my father-in-law, who's a huge Democrat. You and I work the same job. We're both firemen, right? We both risk our life every
Got a
day.
pension.
No, hold on. Let's say we don't. We'll say we both have a pension. Okay. But with that pension, you lived frugally, you saved your money, you didn't spend vicariously, and you lived way below your means, and you lived okay, but you saved a lot. Me, as soon as that paycheck came, boy, I hit the bars, I went and partied, and I had all the nicest car, and I had all this big vacation. 30 years goes by, and it's retirement time. Well, now all I have is my pension, and that's it. Now I got to live at, in subsidized housing or whatever. You, on the other hand, have tons of money, a couple million in the bank, plus your regular retirement. Why should I be the one that shames you for having what you have?
First of all, I'm not shaming anybody.
No, but
What
the
I'm
point
saying
is because you chose to make the right decisions,
But that's a great
and
argument.
the one that did not, so now it's like, oh well, that's too bad for him.
that-
Well, no,
that-
he chose what he
Right.
did.
That's a great argument for a portion of the people. But I don't think it's a great argument for the majority of
I can guarantee you,
I
all
think
the
when you're
people, all the
young-
people that you know are probably close to the same people that I know, because I know a lot of the same people you know, and a lot of them are life choices. A lot of them are life choices. You know what? When I worked my full-time job,
BLCs, bad life choices.
yes, when I worked my full-time job, which was an 8 to 4:30, and then I worked from 5:30 until 10 o'clock for 5 goddamn years because I wanted to buy a house. Most people thought I was crazy. My friends like, what are you doing? I'm like, I want to buy a house.
I can appreciate your hard work. 'Cause
And-
I worked 3 jobs
yeah.
for 30 years. Now I can't even hardly walk. I hurt my back. I
I agree with you.
I can't even get out of bed half the day.
That's where I'm at. So, but now the guy who didn't want to do that is when I'm supposed to say, "Oh man, it sucks for you. You gotta live at
I
Ogden
don't know
Mills."
if it's
Well, sorry.
somebody who didn't want to do it, right? I can use somebody who's very close to me who I love dearly, right? Impossible. They have 3 kids.
Choice.
I understand.
again,
but
choice.
So what? You're
I
almost
wanted
so you're
4
almost
kids.
like saying Bill Gates, right?
No.
Maybe let's
No,
be
Sean.
positive.
I wanted 4 kids. I wanted 4 kids. That's what I wanted. But after 2, my wife like, I can't afford a 3rd kid. So we chose not to have any
Well,
more kids.
I think
Especially
It's choices.
today with
I think the bottom line.
A lot of it's choices.
I think the people that are watching this show, I think will disagree with you. I think most people are hardworking people trying to do the best they can with the skills they have. And all I'm saying is that you can have a defined pension rather than having the way Social Security is. If the boss says to me, if you want a defined pension, Sean, and I'm going to invest it and we're going to put it in the right places, I'm taking $50 a week out of your check. I'm going to give you $50 a week. and it's gonna be invested, and you can't take it to your.
The problem is the people are gonna say, I don't wanna put that $50
They
in.
don't, I wouldn't give them a choice.
But they don't wanna do it.
But
That's
I
the
don't-
problem.
They don't wanna pay Social Security either, but they have no choice.
Well, again,
That's why I'm saying Social Security is really not a real true
No.
pension. What Social Security was, it was supposed to be at the time.
couple of years after you live, then you die.
No, but it was also
People
supposed to
didn't
be a
work.
supplement
That's
to
right.
your pension, because back when it started, everybody had pensions.
They did not have pensions.
Sure
in
they
the
did.
30s.
So,
In the
like-
30s, they didn't have
They
pensions.
had pensions.
They did not have pensions. That's why
They
they
had
created
pensions to an
Social
extent.
Security.
Yeah,
But like,
the
we're like-
railroad had pensions.
Yeah, most people didn't work for the railroad. People, a lot of people worked for small companies, and they didn't have pensions.
for the case of like my grandfather, for instance, he worked for Tobin Packing from the 50s until they closed.
Yeah.
And then he passed away sometime in, 92. And they went bankrupt.
Lost everything.
Lost everything.
Must have been slugs that didn't want to work. hard.
No, but I'm just saying.
That's
So
not what I
like,
said. I
so like
never
he
said
saved
that.
his, he put into that pension his whole life, and my grandmother got nothing.
Correct.
Because the
Disagree
company
with that.
went belly up. So like,
but
you know what I mean?
you're
So
right. But that's
Th-
why you can't. That's why back in the '80s,
I look at same thing with Enron.
right? Back
Enron.
in the '80s, they didn't allow that. That's why the whole pension thing. When one bad thing happens,
Mhm.
they strip the whole fucking tree of all its apples because they go, "Oh, look what happened, to Enron." What happened should have been what they did do. They passed a law that says you can't take the pension money and put it anywhere you can touch. It's got to be put away, so that even if you go bankrupt,
It's called the Safe Harbor Act.
yeah, right. So even if you go bankrupt, the money's still there.
So when you run a 401k like I ran a 401k, Sean, for my company,
I ran a 401k for my company too.
you have to buy a
2000
bond.
bullshit.
Yeah, right.
No.
You have to buy a bond that covers. It's an ERISA bond that covers the cost of what's in your pension. So
But it was
if
also-
you do go bankrupt,
Right.
there's money there for your
And
employees.
major companies had to do the same thing.
Yeah.
They had to put the money aside. It's like you.
Which I'm sure that comes out of like an Enron deal where that now you have to be.
It did. I think
yeah.
it came out of Enron where they said. you
I don't
had
know,
to-
but I'm
But
sure
that was in the 90s.
I'm almost late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, because they took their whole pension. It just happened locally.
Oh, but again, I have an issue with a company being able to take an employee's money
Yeah.
and invest it willy nilly and then have control over it. I like
You
the
don't
idea.
have to have control over it.
No, but the way it used to be, they did. The companies controlled the money. Where now it has to go through a secondary fiduciary that is not affiliated
I
with the
know
company.
people who have pensions that are paying them $10,000 a month.
That's not what I said.
No, I'm just saying that, and they didn't control their pension. It was.
No, it was done by Charles
Right, it was-
Schwab or whatever.
it was put into
yeah,
the chart,
sure.
right, there
I
was-
know what I'm saying. I have an issue where the company controlled the money that the people put in. Like the Tobin's First Prize that went out of business. Now the insolvency of the pension program went with the company.
Well, I think
have an issue.
I
with
have an issue with that too. I think the
and
bottom line
I'm
is-
glad. Unfortunately, it took an Enron type of thing to come out, or even the savings and loan. I think was another one.
Listen,
How many other companies
yeah,
did that?
Yeah.
I'll just end it with the fact that I wish that all companies had a pension. And I think that if I was a union right now, I'd be arguing for pensions over raises, right? Because I think a pension.
Okay, all right. I will tell you. Here's what I tell you. I will agree with your pension if in your pension, let's say the contributions of your life into that pension, let's say, is $100,000. Well, that's all you get.
Well,
Once-
you can't do that because it goes in the market. It could be $1 million.
But
The market.
no, but you can amortize it where it shows that money.
Every.
But once because what happens now, Sean, is let's say you work for Ford, and between your interest and your dividends and your capital gains, now that money you've put in, let's say, is $400,000. You live 30 years out of retirement. You've gobbled up that $400,000. Now the company's got to pay you plus your benefits,
There-
plus that, and that's why companies go bankrupt.
I'm going to disagree with you again and again. I think that people that lived 30 years after they got their pension.
That's the
It's
problem.
far and few between. When the average lifespan of a man is 78 years old and the average guy retires at 65, he's not getting 30 years of pension.
I can guarantee you that a lot of people are retiring
Maybe-
long before 65
maybe-
years old. As a matter of fact, two of my good friends retired from Ford and they're 61.
I'm not saying
So,
everybody.
or 60 to
I'm
67.
just looking at the
So-
statistics, how what the average retirement
Yeah,
age is,
Well, even, you know,
and the average life
62.
expense.
but even looking at, you know, being a cop, what's it,
11
20
years.
20 years or something?
You can get out.
Yeah. So if
So
you start
20
at,
years-
if you start at 20,
45, you're out.
yeah,
Look at
or the
that.
military,
Look
or
at
Yeah.
any of them.
Government can afford that because they can just raise taxes. A company
Well, they
can't
have
just.
the magic money computers.
Of course.
That Elon found.
Yeah. You're talking a system that could not work in the private sector.
I disagree, because it worked forever until greed took over.
It did because people didn't live 20 to 30 years out of retirement.
But it's tough because of the costs, you know, all these things,
And the
they
cost.
get passed on to the consumer.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
If,
So,
if they were putting the money away in the last 15 years, how much that money grew?
But what?
More than
But
that
no. The other thing too is what changed in 40 years. Okay, 1990, General Motors had 80% market share of all vehicles. Now it's down to 40,
difference.
and that's a fact for almost every American
But
company.
you're talking about the company right there that has some of the greatest pensions, and they're still rocking and rolling. They're still.
They're not. Well,
No, they-
no, they are not.
yeah, they went bankrupt
They are
in 08.
bankrupt and renegotiate all those deals.
You're going to tell me half these people.
Ford
that
did
don't-
not, though. Ford did
Ford
not
didn't
take
go.
the
Well, and the only reason why Ford did not is because they used Ford money
Yeah.
to keep their company
But the bottom
solid.
line, if you're talking about when the collapse, that was just greed from all over. First of
That
all,
wasn't green. It was a fact that you.
And they didn't have to take that
It's
money.
not
They
like the
could have.
banks.
They could have
Look,
restructured. their
okay, well, we'll
companies.
talk about Ford.
Let's
So
start with the banks,
Ford pays a forklift truck operator $80,000 a
Good for-
year.
good for
Plus,
that guy.
yeah, and what happens?
I
That
don't know,
job-
my father just bought a.
why do you think? Yeah, and why do you think Ford don't make cars no more? Because they can't compete in the car market.
Maybe the cars weren't selling.
No,
but the trucks are.
no, because they couldn't afford to make the car to make it profitable.
But that is a thing though. Like in 08 when they took the bailout, if they didn't take the bailout and they did bankruptcy and restructured their companies, they could have started all new plans for all their employees. But when they took the money, that was the reason why the government
Because
did
the
it,
union
to
protection.
keep the union
Yeah.
to keep the
Because
union
you know what,
jobs
Mazda-
and all the pensions and everything.
The
that they
government
had.
has subsidized all these businesses in this country. I look, and I don't pretend to know. It's way deeper than I'm just a little guy on a podcast, right? I don't know
I love the way he says that.
I'm not all the.
But,
internal-
but he's going to explain to us how everything works.
well, I'm going to explain pensions because I have one.
You explain government pensions.
No, I
Very
explain
different.
both because
no,
I have pensions from both places.
but it's still it's
I explained the private practice
Yeah,
pension.
That's right. That's why businesses.
I just disagree with them. I don't believe that's why business is out of money.
That's
I don't.
exactly what happened.
Because
They're
almost
unsustainable.
because almost every one of the great companies in this country still
Which one?
have a defined pension.
Which one?
National Grid has a defined pension.
And that is
No,
not
I'm just saying,
National
Ford
Grid.
has a pension.
No,
Chevys have.
They do not have
Yes,
pension.
they do. Look it up.
Yeah,
Look it up.
but look what happens to those business models,
But
Sean.
it-
Because they're collapsing from the
Is that why
inside.
I'm paying $400
You're
Yes.
blaming,
for electricity?
so you're blaming
Yeah.
all of the problems on a pension.
If you look at most of a company's bottom line, it's all retirement benefits. Yes, Sean,
I disagree with you.
it's 100% the
It's
case.
It's a huge factor.
Okay,
And then for the state thing, you know, all those people taking those pensions, that money isn't spent in New York anymore. They're down in Disneyland, you know, sitting
Well, it's
at
still spent in New York.
sitting in Dunedin.
You know why they don't move out of New York? Because they don't pay state taxes in New York. So they're not moving anywhere because that's otherwise they'd have to pay tax on their money. So most people who retire from
so is that what Hochul passed a couple years back? So if you moved out of it,
No.
if you mo- what-
No, the state of New York's never the state doesn't tax a retiree's pension.
but if you move out, it
But if you
does.
live in a state that taxes pensions,
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
So, like, if you moved
I know the state was trying to do something a couple years back that
One of
if
the
you
problems-
moved out of the state and you were retired, they were gonna try to keep that money in New York.
what
somehow.
happens with, like, if you went from New York to Myrtle Beach,
Okay, South Carolina.
South Carolina taxes pensions. So you would pay a tax in Myrtle. That's why you don't move. Most people don't move.
Okay.
They can move to Florida because Florida doesn't have a state income tax.
Free
They
state.
can move right. They can move to Tennessee because they don't have.
But how could they tax your pension if it's not an income tax? You've already paid.
No, I'm saying you don't. You still pay federal,
Well, you're gonna pay for it no matter what.
and if,
Until Trump's done.
Yeah, it's
and then-
coming. That's coming.
well, there's a thing. So that's a great argument here, right? Because you will argue about a pension, but then you think not taxing Social Security because it's a great benefit is somehow not going to break Social Security. So it can't have it both ways, right? If a business can't have the
No, it didn't say
No,
Social
no,
Security. It says federal income tax. It's different than Social Security.
no. Trump
Yes.
has said he's not gonna tax people's social security.
No, he
Yes,
said,
come on.
he said federal income tax.
He wants to get rid of the
Trump said he doesn't wanna tax social security. That was the
That's
first thing he
not
said.
what I heard.
Then it was tax on
You
tips.
shouldn't.
But then you make that same argument. You
Well,
go,
no, well,
geez,
no.
the private sector.
No, the problem is that the taxing Social Security is double dipping. They're taxing you on money you already made. That's what he's saying.
No,
So
That's the same with your tax return. You know, you have to claim that money that you
The following
already
year.
paid.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
saying
Like, it's
the
like,
Social
what?
Security is funded by the taxes you pay to Social Security, right? If
Yes,
they
but
didn't-
what they're
if they
doing
didn't
now is-
rape Social Security, there'd never be a problem. Most pensions got destroyed because the businesses stole the money to invest in other things. And unfortunately, a pension was a liability on the books. So if you had a legacy pension that went out 20 years and it's $3 million, you have to write that off as a loss, right? It's not a profit. And that was one of the arguments that was happening with private companies. On the books, they were losing money. They couldn't get more loans, so they were robbing their pensions. There's 1,000 things on the internet about how pensions got destroyed and how big corporations robbed the pensions. Then they couldn't pay them back, and then that becomes a problem. And then they go belly up, and then you got the Enron thing. So it's just more than just saying the pension destroyed the.
Greed destroyed it.
I think greed has destroyed. But I'm going to jump into something else because I'm done fighting with you guys. On that.
we beat him down.
I got beat down by two guys on a mic.
Ah! Two lies and political bullshit.
I want to jump into New York State, right? Because I'm so sick and tired of the woke world that we live in. And New York State is the
Colorado.
worst, along with California, right?
And Colorado now.
In Colorado, and we're going to talk about Colorado too.
Yeah. No,
In New York
it's
State,
disgusting.
right? In New York State, they want to pass a law, and it's in the process. And once it gets any steam, you know it passes.
Oh, it's passing.
Raise the age.
Especially in this goddamn state.
You got raise the age. You got bail reform. Now they don't want police to be able to pull a car over that has a broken taillight, that has an expired registration, that has a headlight out, right? And I'm thinking, why do we keep trying to help the bad guy?
Well,
In
and
New
they,
York
and they
State-
just released how many criminals
They just
because they don't
well,
have the,
that's another
told
thing we
you.
argued about.
I
No,
told
I told you she was going to fire them all, and you.
Yeah. No, I said they should have all. They should
Yeah,
have all.
They can't fire them.
They can't
she was
fire 'em
gonna
all.
bring in the National Guard.
Yeah.
She would have bring in the National Guard. She said if they all.
Yeah, and what happened to those people? They all got
Bunch of
rehired.
18-year-old
They all got rehired.
We had.
Thank
no,
you,
no,
Steve
no.
McLaughlin
Some of them.
and Sheriff Zerlo.
And Saratoga.
But they're not
Yeah.
all hired yet, because now they're, that's a loss. What a fucking asshole.
She
of a
is-
governor
she
would
is
say,
a-
I fired all you people because you're out fighting about your safety and of course your pension and your overtime and some other things, right? But not only did I fire you, which I told you was going to happen, they also then go and say, you can't work anywhere in the state of New York. Who the hell is she to decide where somebody can work? And listen, this whole thing about pulling cars over, think about some of the people who were arrested because they got pulled over. Timothy McVeigh blew up the federal building, right?
Yeah.
Son of Sam, because they found the gun in his car. The guy from DC,
the
Sniper, the
the
sniper.
guy who was shooting
Sniper there.
everybody out. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was his-
that was a taillight issue because
Yes, it was.
he used to sit in the back of his car and stick the gun outside.
John
the,
Allen.
Yeah,
John
yeah,
Allen.
I know.
Muhammad,
Yes,
right?
I remember that.
These are some of the worst criminals in the world. All got pulled over, broken taillights. Ted Bundy had a headlight out. One of the biggest murderers in the world got arrested. These guys all got arrested because a cop pulled them over because you know what? They didn't care about their headlights and all that. They were murderers.
It's a statistical fact that most crime is stopped because of a traffic violation.
Yeah. Now,
Most criminals are caught because of a traffic violation.
why would we want to stop that? Somebody's got to give me a reason because I can't wrap my arms around it. What benefit are we giving to the state of New York where, first of all, we let you out of jail? Secondly,
Because we don't have
we
enough-
don't put you in jail.
we don't have
Third
enough
of
prison
all-
guards.
Yeah. Third of all, we don't have enough prison guards because I fired 2,000.
Listen, I'm not going to be politically correct here, and I'm probably going to get persecuted. This is a gift to the minorities in government.
Of course, well, it's not just a minority.
Because the
it's
problem
minorities.
is if you look, I'm guaranteed if you dig a deep dive in the statistics, these type of traffic offenses are more heavily weighted in the minority population than they are in whites or Asians.
You're absolutely right. That's the reason behind
Yeah,
it.
sure it
But
is.
it's a bullshit reason.
Listen, I don't disagree with
Because it
you, but
goes
that's
right
why
back-
they do it.
It goes right back to this. Oh, well, sorry, if you can't afford to fix your headlight, then don't drive the car. Oh, well, he's in poverty. There's an excuse for everything, right? How about this? How about everybody has to drive a car? It has to meet the qualifications. And if you get pulled over, it
You get a
shouldn't matter
ticket.
what color you are.
You get a ticket.
Because the fun part of this is this. More black people get pulled over.
Yeah, they don't look.
More white people got tickets. At least based on what I read.
More white people are killed by cops every year.
And more white people are killed
Yeah.
by cops every year. And I
But,
don't- I don't
but you'll
want-
never hear that narrative.
and I don't want to get in the race debate because I believe the race debate is just set up so people will fight.
Absolutely.
And I have biracial grandkids who I love
Well,
more
it
than
keeps us
anything else.
distracted.
Well, that's what it does. The whole world's always distracted.
Well, listen, I really think that Obama set race relations back 25 years. He was a great divider in chief. He really was.
If you don't
Put us
vote for
back
me,
in
you're not
the-
black. I mean, how can you say
Yeah.
that and not be a racist?
I think that was Biden.
Biden,
Yeah, Joe
yeah,
Biden.
Joe
yeah.
Biden.
Yeah.
Joe Biden's.
On
you know,
what
if you're
was that?
selling crack, you should go to
Charlemagne.
jail for life. I mean,
Yeah.
this guy was a racist of all races.
Yeah.
Well, he came up with the crime bill in,
Yes,
in
that's
the
what I'm saying.
90s.
the crime-
And he distanced himself from that during his presidency.
And then you got a guy like Al Sharpton who
He's a
who
big.
took $500,000 of money for his presidential campaign and went out and bought a fancy car and some suits and went to hotels with women and
yeah.
You know,
Presidents
I think the greatest day. Again, I'm going to take a page out of your book, Sean, because you just said it earlier about Bill Gates. But I think the greatest day in Albany County was probably the day that, how do I say it without, when Alice Green was no longer an activist,
no. I'm going to tell you something.
because
I
she
know-
was the
Who's Alice
biggest.
Green?
She was
She was an activist.
a black provocateur,
Yeah.
provocateur, and just she'd be the first one to say, "Oh, crime is high in the Albany South End," and then the cops would go and they'll patrol. Oh, the cops are targeting the Albany South End. Well, you were just complaining that crime was high there, and now the cops are there.
I had a pleasure of meeting her a few times, right, and working with
She was married to a white guy too,
yeah, and
and she was the most racist person. I knew.
working with her on some issues in Albany. I really think if you convince yourself something, you really believe what you're arguing. Because I used to
Well, you
say-
tell a lie often enough, you'll
I
believe the
used
lie.
to say to her, I don't see it the way you see it. I appreciate your advocacy. I appreciate there's things that you're arguing for that really need to change.
Sure.
But they don't stop there. It becomes everything.
Yeah.
And if you don't agree with 99.9% of them, then they don't like you, or you're the racist guy. I help more people in Arbor Hill get jobs. The Albany County continues to use their intern program. I started it. I started it for all inner city kids so that they could go work in the county in one of the many different genres that we have, so they could find out, do I want to be a sheriff? Do I want to work in corrections? Do I want to work in health department? Do I want to be a probation officer? Do I want to work in DPW? I got them all jobs all summer long. And then I was criticized by her because not everybody was of color. I'm like, well, some white kids live in Arbor
Yeah,
Hill.
really.
So I get it. These people who advocate sometimes need to advocate for things I don't even know if they believe, or maybe they've convinced themselves they're true, because that's what they do. That's how they make their name. That's how they
They're
make their
paid
money.
antagonists.
Yeah, but some of them really are.
Did you see
Al Sharpton.
this recent article about this principal? There was a bomb threat in her school, and she wouldn't let the cops come in to search the school because she felt unsafe with the police there.
Well, that
Then why'd you call the cops?
Yeah.
happened in Cohoes.
And what happens if a bomb went off? Who's the first person she's going to be looking for?
That happened in Cohoes when I was on the job and I was on the call. And, you get bomb threats all the time. And, 99.9% of them, it's all bullshit. But you still got to go. And you still got to walk through the school. And you still got to make sure the kids are safe. And we got there, and the principal at the middle school wouldn't let us in. She said that we were disrupting their education.
But there's a bomb threat.
And we got in a big fight with her. And in the end, she would have got arrested if she didn't let us in. And we got in. But that's the mindset of people.
It's like aiding and abetting or something.
It's just people are.
But I think we're at a spot in time now that people like to just challenge challenge authority.
Well, we've given
badly.
We've given them the
I-
right to do that. New York State's one of them.
The George Floyd thing, that set the
George
whole
Floyd
police
died of
relations
fentanyl.
back.
Yeah.
Drugs, he was
you
taking
saw the
fentanyl.
pill in his mouth. So I was on TikTok the other day, and I'm scrolling through, and I watched this video of a cop. There's two police officers. One guy is doing his thing, and the other cop walks down the hill, maybe about 35 feet, 40 feet, and this one guy sitting there filming. He goes, "Listen, you can't be behind us. Move over there by the post. We don't want anyone behind us. Can you move on? I'm entitled to be here.
Yeah.
Look, I just need you to move. Just go over there. I don't want anyone behind us.
Personal
I
safety,
can,
yeah.
I can do this. You take for about a good minute and a half. This cop is like arguing with him. Just go over there, and this guy is getting in his face. Finally, the cop arrests him. So I said, why do this? My comment was, why do these TikTok warriors continuously want to challenge the police officer
'Cause they're
so they
looking
can
for
get their
views.
freaking clickbaits?
Yeah.
And I was excoriated by people. I was called a Nazi.
Yeah, you
I
can't-
was called an anti-constitution scumbag. I couldn't believe it.
There's a fine line.
The cop said, just go film over there.
There's no respect no more.
But then you do get the cops that are, right off the rip that are charging you. Get out
Yeah.
of here, we'll arrest you. Blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah.
and this guy was totally professional.
The government has destroyed this country. They've destroyed each state that's a blue state where they're allowing all of these people to be emboldened.
Mhm.
And you can't, back when I was a kid, I was as crazy as they come, but if the cops showed up, I ran.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
My mother yelled at me, I was scared.
Now kids yell at
Right?
flick
No,
off
I wasn't
cops.
scared of you or him or her. I'd fight the whole freaking park. But you know what? If my mother came over, I'd shit my pants and I'd run home because I was afraid of them. Right? The cops came. I was afraid of them
Yeah.
because my mother taught me respect. That little 4'11" redhead would crack you over the head with that big wooden spoon. I told you last time, right off the wall, right? Bam! There. But the kids ain't afraid no more. And government has said things like, "Oh, if you're 17, even if you murder somebody, you can't go to prison." Or look at if you hit somebody with a hammer, we're going to let you out with an appearance ticket. And
Look at that kid in Texas.
Yeah, the one that stabbed the
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
runner.
They're trying to
Did you
just.
see,
that-
you see what the GoFundMe's up?
Like $100,000.
Yeah.
This guy is a criminal kid who wasn't even supposed to be there, stabs another kid, and somehow we justify it.
Yeah.
The guy who shot the CEO of the medical
Look at it. He's
trying
got
to make a
wit.
bill named after him or
Yes.
something.
Yes.
And he's got girls that are doing marriage proposals,
How-
and he's got a GoFundMe account.
How do we elect
But
these people?
I can kind of relate to that kid too.
How do we
What? Shoot a freaking CEO? Yeah, I can't relate to
I don't-
that.
Imagine if you needed an operation and the
Yeah,
insurance
but that wasn't even the
company.
whole argument. After the end, that wasn't even. Look, here's the bottom line. I don't give a shit what anybody does.
they did
unless
martyr
they
him.
try to hurt my
They did
kids.
martyr him. They martyred him.
Yeah. Unless they try to hurt my kids,
Mhm.
there's no justification for me to kill anybody, right? You
And
know,
you know he's going to get the death penalty.
well, he should. They should have it on national TV so everybody recognizes if you do that, that's what's going to happen to you. But instead, we just tell them, oh, go away. We send bolden criminals now to family court. You want to see a cesspool? Go to family court.
I've heard.
It is a cesspool beyond belief. 15 minutes there, if you are just a person with an average mind, you want to jump out the window because you can't believe the world is full of people like that. It's a cesspool of
And you
animals.
want to give them all pensions.
No, I want the people to go to work.
The purge just sounded better.
No, I want to give them cops the pensions who have to deal with those people. But but it is a cesspool.
Quick side note though on that kid that stabbed the runner. His father came out and said that he was like a 3.0 or 3 point something GPA student,
Yeah.
and they went back into his last 3 years and it was like 1 point something.
No,
1 point-
the one that stabbed the kid.
the one that
Yeah.
stabbed the kid.
Wasn't he thrown out of school?
So the father that came out and said he was a 3 point something student just added the last 3 years of his GPA.
Oh, I thought he was talking about the
It was
years
like
combined.
1 point this, 1 point that, and it like added up to the 3 point.
Oh my god.
Look, and it's a sad story no matter what, because you have a young kid dead, families destroyed for life.
Oh yeah.
Whether or not, I don't know the parents of that other kid, but their kid's got to go to prison, I would think. So their lives are destroyed.
Maybe.
That kid's life is destroyed.
And you're gonna tell me that kid didn't know he was sitting in the wrong
He
spot?
wasn't even supposed to be there.
Yeah.
I at least what I read, and I don't know if it's true.
He was
Someone-
sitting in the wrong in the
But he-
in the opposing team's like 10.
But he wasn't supposed to even be at the track meet
Oh,
because he was
really?
suspended or something. At least that's
Oh,
what
okay.
I thought I read on Facebook. I'll stand corrected. But at the end of the day, it's another kid who murdered somebody. And we're seeing kids murder
For nothing.
people every day. Charles Barkley
Crazy.
is my hero, and I'm going to tell you why. Because he's the only black guy that comes out and says, listen, when you're watching all these videos, it's all the who's breaking into the stores, who's robbing the stores, who's breaking into the jewelry stores, who's mobbing all of these places and stealing all the clothes, who's burning down the cities, then stealing TVs in the name of justice.
Yeah.
And he's a black man, and he can say it. If I said it, I'm just the biggest racist in the world. But I say a lot of things, and I'm not afraid to say them. I turn those things on. I flip through. I watch these videos. I see what I see, and so don't everybody else. But they got to justify it.
But I just don't understand why. Okay.
They're targeted. They're just
But no, but
targeted.
this has always been an issue, and I hate talking about race because people always turn it around.
Yeah, because
But-
it's turned around.
Yeah,
It is. It's a
but
tough topic.
you know, facts are facts. Why are the biggest crime-ridden neighborhoods the black neighborhoods? And but you can't bring that up. You can never say that.
The CIA.
You and your deep dive rabbit holes. But I just don't understand that. I mean, you know, it is what it is, and the first part of addressing a problem is recognizing the problem. If you're not willing to say, well, unfortunately, there's something systemically wrong in the black community that's causing more crime or less respect or blah blah blah. I think it's lack of fathers in homes, but I'm just gonna go with that. But you know, until it gets addressed, and people are willing to talk about it openly, it'll never get resolved. It'll always
And it
be a
didn't always
problem.
used to be like that
No.
either. Like there used to be a Black Wall Street. Before the 1960s, African Americans were primarily Republican.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So something changed somewhere around the 60s.
Well, yeah, I think he hit it on the head. Change is the home is divided.
Yeah.
A lot of single mothers, and then
And that is.
Well, and we had this discussion.
Yeah, and that number has grown.
well,
and-
with drugs and all of the shit going on now, it's single grandmothers trying to raise the kids.
Yeah.
And back when I was a kid, I'm gonna tell you something. I had a couple black friends. Them grandmothers didn't play. They'd come right out and whack you in the head. You weren't gonna. They were church going, God fearing, and they wanted to instill the best life they had. Because I do believe there was a point in this country where black kids, you know, got treated a little different, right? Their opportunities were maybe a little shorter, and those grandmothers wanted to make sure that their kids didn't get in trouble, had the best education, and had the best chance in a tough world.
But I will say, when I used to, in my previous lifetime, I used to deliver medical equipment. I used to deliver a lot of medical equipment to Albany. And some of my favorite patients were the old black ladies.
Yeah, man.
Oh
because they
my
didn't-
God, they always had a plate of food. They loved to talk. They
also
wanted
love
hugs.
God, and they love
Hugs.
Oh,
family.
they wanted to hug. Come on, baby. Come sit with me for a
Now
little
you don't
bit.
see
Oh, I
that.
used to love
And it's
it.
not just
It
happening.
was great. It was great.
It's not just happening in black neighborhoods anymore. It's happening all over.
Yeah.
We're very diverse now.
I want to jump to my last topic because this one really bothers me.
You saved the best for last?
I saved the best for last. I want to talk about pensions. No, I mean
So about pensions.
about those pensions.
About those pensions now.
Colorado
Ah,
just passed in the first house, I think,
sickening.
a new bill that really just mirrors California, this slum in California that's already done it. It basically says that if you are a parent and you don't recognize the perceived gender of your child, now I don't know what the hell age a young kid really perceives their gender. It's usually the crazy parent that perceives it. That the government can actually come in
I take your child.
and take your child. Think of all of the loopholes in that. Just think about a mother and father who are going through a divorce.
A nasty
ugly
divorce, yeah.
And the first thing the mother says is, my daughter thinks she's a boy and he won't let her think. Boom, next thing you know, he's out and the mother gets the kid, right?
Yeah.
Think,
Or vice versa,
but,
sure.
but think about a government that thinks it has the right
To do that.
to reach into a family and dictate how this family should raise their kids.
But Sean, and people are okay with it.
In Colorado,
But Trump's an authoritarian.
Yeah.
But Trump's an authoritarian, right? And I think to
And
myself,
Elon Musk is the Nazi.
And that's the same crap that they're doing in in England, that they're doing in.
California.
Well,
and-
no, but like these other countries, like
Yeah,
if you-
Europe's got a big problem.
Yeah, if
with,
you
free
post
speech and-
something
They'll arrest you.
that
Yes.
you know, I think you should be deported, they will come and arrest you for
Yeah,
that shit.
yeah. I
Because-
watched it on TV, and that's why the vice president went and he.
which was a great speech, by
Right,
the
and
way.
what did they do? The CNNs and the MSNBC,
Oh, what was
they just beat the shit out of him like he's some kind of monster.
The
because
one guy from Germany started crying.
Yeah.
The one, whatever he is.
They should have slapped him in the head and said, "Here's a,
Oh,
you know,
my
my
God.
father used to say to me, here's a, you want to cry? I'll give you a reason."
I'll give you a reason.
They should have gave him a reason.
My kids will tell you the worst phrase out of my mouth was, "You want a reason to cry? I'll give it to you
I'll
right
give you a
now."
reason.
Yeah.
But I think about this. I really do think about it because once California does it, and then Colorado does it, then New York does it. I don't know if there's anything that would ever start a revolution against a government
Try to take your kids.
than you trying to steal kids out of their home.
But it's not happening in Colorado or California. People aren't rising
Well, it
up.
hasn't happened yet. There's not been a case where it's happened. Let it become
But they're also brainwashed monkeys. you
right.
know?
Let it become the norm.
Why are you insulting monkeys like that?
I think that
You're
is
saying they're
It's true.
Democrats?
They are a distant cousin.
But just
I
think
don't
about
get it.
this.
I don't understand.
Just think about your home
Oh,
and your child's 5 years old, and you have a boy who's 5, you have a daughter that's 6, and the little boy sees the daughter dressing up in the girl's clothes all the time, and he goes, "I want to be a girl," right? Just little kids. I mean, I have little girls, and I know how they all mock each other, right? I had a son. He was over at Joey Guerin, a good friend of mine's house, and they dressed him up like a girl, right? They put lipstick on? He'd come out of the room like, "What the hell happened?" But little kids do those things. So just because they're playing or they're doing something, how does a 5-year-old know? What kind of
it's funny.
sexuality?
I said, go ahead.
According to another headline, is the Boston's Children Hospital or something in Boston with children and medical, they came out and said that in the womb,
Yeah.
I
read
children
that.
can so at a double-edged sword. So now you're saying that in the womb.
So it's a viable baby in the womb that
Yeah,
has
so now you have a
thought.
viable baby in the womb. So which one is it? You know, is it abortion
So-
not murder? Or?
It's funny. I was often asked I have
What?
one of my nephews is gay. So we had this conversation with them. I said, well, what would you do if, one of your boys started showing homosexual tendencies? I said, well, first of all, as a dad, I would slap him inside the head. Get out of your head. It's not happening. You're a boy. Time marches on. If at 18, and assuming it's like 13, 14, you don't know what you're doing. Your hormones are raging. You have no clue. Whatever. At 18, he comes back and he says, hey, Dad, I feel like guys. Well, at that point, you're 18 years old, I'd be unbelievably disappointed. I love you no matter what. Just disappointed because it's not the nucleus family I imagined my son to have. But if he likes boys and the boys make him happy, or another man's going to make him happy, and he's my son. I want whatever's great for him.
Could be the
But-
end of the bloodline too.
But for me, as a parent and a dad, and the alpha of my home, it is my job, I feel, that from the time he's born to the time that he's at least 18, although a parent's job never stops, is to try to show him the right way, the center road, not the fringes. This is the norm. The societal norms are this. Yeah, you can veer off a little bit, but this is what you're supposed to do. And I think parents don't want to do that today. They're too busy either trying to validate themselves or be friends with their kids. I don't understand it. To me, if my son at 7 years old said, I'm a girl, no, you're not. You're a boy. Get it out of your head.
Or you're trying to conform to society, like you look in the California or the Hollywood, like all these like celebrities
Their
apparently have
kids
all
are
these.
fucking weirdos.
They all have like transgender kids all of a sudden. It's like
It's nuts.
it's just like a fad. Like they're
There's
trying
a lot
to,
of gay people in politics. Okay.
Whatever.
No, there's a lot of gay people in politics, and I don't care what people are, but I do believe that they are pushing this agenda because you know what? when you
They're trying to
feel-
validate themselves.
they're trying to validate that, oh, we went through
Yeah.
this and you now look what you're doing to these people. I've said this 1,000 times. I don't give a shit if you're trans.
No.
I helped pass the first bill ever in Albany County to give them rights so they weren't discriminated against for employment and housing and because I don't care. And I don't care about them playing sports. You want to have your own category, transgender,
Yes.
open, then go play.
I have an issue with a
Stay
man
out
playing
of
the
the
girl.
women's
Yeah.
space.
Have a co-ed league.
Like,
Yeah,
you can play
co-ed.
co-ed.
Sure.
You can have a transgender league.
Yeah.
You can have whatever you want. Men will be men, girls will be girls, and whoever's in between, you can have your own league. I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. I have a problem when a man tries to take something away from a woman. I have a problem when a woman's a billiards game is now being decided
By
by
two men.
The top
dressed
two,
as
yeah.
women. I have a problem with that, and nobody understands. Man, I get on this tangent because it just bothers me. But
It
listen,
blows your mind.
It blows my mind.
Where's the National Organization of Women in all this?
Men are fighting for women's
Yes.
rights, and women are silent.
I don't get it.
I don't get it either. I wrote a
Trump, Trump
post-
is fighting. He's fighting all over the place for women's rights, and the women are the one calling him whatever they want to call him.
because the world is freaked up, and I don't understand why. Listen, I don't know how I would act if my son came to me, but I know that if they were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I would just brush it off as they're little kids. They don't know what they want. For Christ's sake, I'm 57. I don't know what I want. But so the little kid does. I'm not talking about that.
Okay, I was going to
I
say,
don't know what I want in
whoa,
my life.
this is a revelation
The
here.
little kid doesn't know what he wants in his life.
We're not judging.
Yeah,
Judgment
no,
free.
no.
We listen and we don't judge.
I don't know what I want totally in my life.
Now we know
right?
why he
I'm
goes.
retired.
Now we know why he goes to Florida.
Yeah. With
Hi,
my kids.
Hi,
My
fellas.
kids.
Go.
To Disney, no less.
go for
That
the
came out wrong. I don't know at 57 some of the things that I want
Yeah.
to do with my life.
Sure.
So how's a 7-year-old know what they want to do with their life, right?
No, the world's tough enough.
So all I say is this: let them go.
Wait, how old are you?
I'm 57.
He's retired at 57. So how long is he going to live outside that pension? See, you see, he proves,
Not another
he
20
proves
years.
my point.
Said
First of
another
all-
20 years.
First of all, my pension is the money. Most of it's the money I.
I'm
put
just
into
busting
30.
your
No,
chops.
I'm saying because I took my 401k and said I need to supplement this because if I'm going to retire, most people who retire from the firehouse have to go get another job. They're not making enough money on a pension to live for the rest of their life off that pension.
Well, they can retire early enough they can.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Most people
Yeah.
get out of that job because you know what? When you're
You burn out.
well,
No
when
pun
you're
intended.
58
You
years
burn
old,
out.
you're,
Yeah.
you're a little too old to be climbing up ladders.
Yeah.
And,
Do you
right.
get pensions from your other public services too?
No.
No.
The only pension I have is the firehouse, and the rest of it is money that I saved for 30 years. Like he said,
Yeah.
I worked 3 jobs, I saved money. I'm retired. Tell you the truth, I love to work. I can hardly walk some days. Some days I can't get out of bed. I haven't been able to, this is, you know, when I hurt my back, I can't feel my legs. So people laugh, but my legs are ice cold. I can't feel them.
It's because you're wearing shorts.
And I can't know. I don't even know. I wouldn't even know. And I can't feel my feet. And I've been to 100 doctors, and they said, and when I tell you my legs hurt, sometimes they hurt so bad that I can't even, I mean,
Did you have an accident or anything when
I
you were a
fell
firefighter?
through, yeah, I fell and got hurt.
Yeah.
But I didn't go out. I worked, you know, I was out.
Typical man goes right back to work and
Well, I
works.
was out. I was
Duct
out-
tape that shit. Keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, I was out for a year on 9 months on light duty because I couldn't walk.
But you went to work every day.
But I went to work.
Yeah. I did
And-
the same
and
thing.
then I
I
got out.
fell off the back of a loading dock. Same thing.
What the hell's a light duty and driving
Well,
a truck?
yeah,
Administrative stuff.
paperwork and all that shit. But you know, then I pushed myself to go back. I lasted a couple more years, but I was in agony. I mean, there's days that I'm sitting home.
Yeah, that's heavy.
I want to cry. There's so much pain in my back. It's weird you can't feel your legs.
Yeah.
But they hurt so bad that sometimes I can't even get up. And so I got to a point where I said, look, I'm not going to have a lot of money. I got my pension, which is not huge by no means. And I got the money for my 401k, which I said, when it's taking a hit now, that's hurting me. Because I had X amount of years, X amount of money. So I'm lucky I did do that. Luckily I was frugal and I worked hard, but I worked 3 jobs to be able to put that away. 2 jobs I wouldn't have been able to do it because I had a wife, I had 3 kids. They were expensive, right? I was sending them to private school in the beginning. You know, I was trying to put money away from them for their future. But the bottom line is, the world as a whole is fucked up. This whole Colorado thing has me rattled. Because
The fact that government can reach into your family home and take your kids just because you refuse to live in their delusional 5-year-old brain.
these are
it's
little
crazy.
these are little shitbags that you didn't pick in gym class that are now the lawmakers.
Yeah.
Okay? And half of the ones that are up there talking are gay. And I think to myself, why does a gay man think it's important to be able to take away someone's kid? Are you trying to make yourself feel good? I get it. Maybe at one point in life, if you were gay, you were treated really bad.
Not anymore though.
No, I could give a shit right now.
Nobody cares.
And I would say to my kid, listen, if you're...
Although I will say I have an issue with Gay Pride Day,
Oh, well, I do
Gay
too.
Pride Parade,
I do too.
because it becomes a debauchery for
Why
some
do you have
reason.
to flaunt your sexuality?
Yeah,
You don't do it as a
you-
heterosexual.
You
don't-
want to be considered normal, but you want your own special day, your own special flag. It's not
Why
how
do
it
you
works.
think I say this all the time? And I know it for a fact. I know it for a fact because when I was doing the transgender bill, I spent 3 years with hundreds and hundreds of transgender people. And here's what I know. This many can fit in that little fucking palm of your hand that are actually the ones causing all the problems. The other ones just want to live their life. They don't want to be bothered. They don't want to play women's
And they-
sports.
yeah, they don't
They just want to be just like
It's that 1%.
Yes, just like a heterosexual, just like a gay.
It's a lot of suburban white women that.
Yes,
Yeah.
women.
Most gay men do not want to march in a parade. They want to be respected. You know what they want to be able to do? They want to live. They want to love who they love. They want to be able to have kids.
That's what we all want.
Right.
Sure.
They don't want to be looked at as some kind of freak and go, well, I can't believe you to let them adopt a kid. They want to be good. I knew gay parents that had kids. They were wonderful people.
Most of the people that I know that are gay, you couldn't tell they were gay.
They're not marching down Queer Street with their pants on backwards, right? Making a spectacle of themselves and then wondering why people don't like them.
Yeah.
Because the reality is most transgenders just want to live their life. They're not looking to go in the girls' room and show their balls to little girls, right? That's people who use the transgender,
It's ma'am.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
that guy in the store.
In the GameStop.
and I'm not calling somebody he or she or it. I don't get
Or the guy that's a transgendered woman that wants to go that insists on working at Hooters
Yeah.
and then gets mad because the guy goes, I really don't want you as my waitress.
yeah.
Well, you have to fit into a uniform.
But that's a small
Yeah.
group of people, and that's what shocks me about the world.
We're allowing them to dictate the
greasy,
rules.
what is it? The greasy wheel gets the
Squeaky wheel.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah, gets the grease.
But even Obama, when he was campaigning in 07, 08 against Hillary, you can look.
Well, he had Michael telling him what to do.
Well, yeah, but you can look up the debates and he was Christian and this and that and was
They all
against
pivot.
the gay marriage and all this, and then he turns around and
They all pivot hard.
yeah,
I'm not against.
but he campaigned on that.
Yeah.
I'm not against anything that doesn't affect my life. Right?
Yeah.
You're gay.
I could care less.
I could care less. You want?
But
you
start
could be my
pushing on
buddy,
me.
I'll hang out with you.
Yeah, but start pushing it on me or pushing it on
That's
my
right.
kids. That's where I draw the line.
When you start
When you become using it as an identifier, that's where I have a problem.
when you start thinking you can take away people's kids, when you think that you have to, that I somehow am the bad guy because I don't have to justify calling you a woman when I know you're a man. You know what? If a transgender comes up to me now, I just say, "Hey, how are you?" I don't say hi, he, because I don't know what the
Say
fuck.
what's up, man?
The problem is you can tell.
Well, of
you can
course,
tell
but-
they're men.
Well,
It's
you
like,
can't-
dude,
You can if you go to Thailand.
no, those are hard to tell. What was it?
they are
What,
pretty
what
good.
was the hangover? It was beautiful. We came at the same time. He's like, no.
I don't know. I seen a couple in the magazine. I said that could really be a man, but that's a whole different world. So we can't talk
No,
about that.
I'm more pissed, about Congress stealing trillions of dollars from Social Security. I'm more pissed that
Yeah, right. Right. The reality
the
is,
waste that's uncovered. Like that's the stuff that pisses me off, and that's the stuff people should be focused on and
Yeah, but
not
there's-
distracted by this.
But the thing is, there's so much that government is doing today that it shouldn't be doing.
didn't
well-
they used to say that government started the war to make you forget about one issue and focus
Oh,
on
yeah.
the war?
Let's sleight of hand.
Well, that's all. This
Wag the
is.
dog.
The Democrats right now have no answer They got caught with their hands in the cookie jar. They've wasted billions and billions of our dollars on their pet projects. We knew that illegals were voting.
They're provoking these riots
Right.
and this outrage.
We knew they were voting, and they find them with all social security numbers. We knew they started the riots, and they were burning down buildings. That was all diversion shit. And all these people that are out there screaming, you could show 100,000 of them at ACO's, Bernie's rally. It's the same ones that were there when he ran for president, and he still lost, right?
And
Small.
Yeah, it's
numbers.
recycled rhetoric to recycled crowds. Nothing's changed.
and ultimately, they're going to be known as the party of violence. Look at all this.
They are.
I mean, 100 years ago, they were burning crosses on people's front yards to intimidate them. Today, they're burning Teslas on your front
Yeah,
yard.
yeah.
Listen,
It's the
that's a
same
great-
tactics.
Yeah,
over
I
and
often
over.
said
That's a
it.
great
Look,
point.
as a conservative, I know you're Democrats. I don't really know where you stand on this, but
The
you know,
history is in your favor.
as a, I didn't like that Bud Light pushed Moldavie
Yeah.
into my face. So I just chose. I'm just not buying Bud Light or Anheuser-Busch products.
And the
The
stocks
Dem- the
and the
Demo-
shelves
yeah.
stayed full.
Yeah, Democrats don't like what somebody does. They decide to burn Teslas, hang effigies of people, destroy cars, intimidate.
That one thing I think
we're
you
not.
shared it.
We're not the same. Yeah, we're not. We're just not the same.
Yeah, but what's that one thing that I think you shared it with the woman who had the Trump puppet and the
Yes.
like what?
What is that?
These are
So there
grown-
was
these are
there was
grown
a
adults.
woman who had like a doll of Donald Trump, and she was, not to be graphic, guys, but was wearing a strap on,
We're all
and
gonna
as
see
she walked, she was banging the
Maybe
puppet
she
in the
was
ass.
trying to do-
What-
And
yeah,
just like
and
yeah,
she's
she
like,
looked
I'm like, what?
your neighbor next door.
What is wrong with you people? I mean, I never liked Joe Biden. I didn't like Barack Obama. I was not a Bernie Sanders, but I would never think of doing something like that. I
That's because
just,
you were raised.
I just,
But
no,
it's
because
just
you know
crazy.
what? I can disagree with somebody, vehemently disagree with somebody, but I don't see a reason to disparage them or
Well, you
or
see-
just destroy them.
Well, here's what I know. You're always yelling at me, and I'm not behind you with a.
Or vice versa, pal. Although now we question that, 'cause you said you were discovering yourself or
Yes, I'm
whatever.
still discovering.
But you look at these protests and stuff, and
It's crazy.
you know whether they're trying to incite them or not. You know, with these man on the street interviews or whatever, like these people get mad and they get physical, and you know what I mean. It's like,
Just remember,
and there's actually a good one where this dude, you know, there was like a Trump rally on this side of the street and Democrat rally on this side of the street, and you know they switched shirts, and one went to this side.
Oh, I saw that. I saw
And he
that.
got destroyed on the Democrat side, and then they switched shirts and went to and they welcomed him with open arms, you know, giving him hugs.
And he was
you know.
shocked. He was like, "Really? This
Yeah.
is
This is
not
what I thought it was going to be.
No, I remember that. It was Fox did that.
Yeah.
It was they were going to each other's rallies to see how they were treated by the crowds.
human beings
hmm
are gullible, and all you have to do is remember: hundreds of people drank Jim Jones's Kool-Aid.
Yeah, comments coming.
People knew they were gonna die, and they
Look at the Branch Davidian
yeah.
and David Koresh.
And I'm gonna. I have said this in a lot of different debates that I had. Political parties, in my opinion, have destroyed politics because it makes people choose a side, even when they really don't know the side, and they defend the side and not even listen to the issue. So it doesn't matter the issue. If it's the Democrats saying it's bad, all the Democrats say it's bad.
Yes,
because
sir.
they have taken this religious cult type
I was just gonna say
feeling
it's a
and said
religion.
we are part of this team.
Well, it's a mob mentality,
Yeah, and we're part of this team.
which is
And
why
it's-
the electoral college is
Right.
necessary.
And it's both sides, man. It is both sides because we could rationalize and argue and debate. We're having fun. We're friends on a podcast.
Sure.
A lot of it's show, and we're just having a good time. Right?
Sometimes it's not.
Well, I didn't want to
Pretty
hurt your
good in the
feelings.
beginning.
I didn't want to hurt your feelings. That's why I almost jumped.
So
on the
pensions.
So, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the reality is, but most people can't separate it because they're part of the cult. And I would say to people who are Democrats, listen, stop defending the term Democrat because you don't even know what you're fighting about. You're just a Democrat. And that's why when they go up to these people say, what did Trump do wrong?
They
don't
can't tell
know.
you.
But they're not fighting because Trump did something wrong. They're fighting because the Democrats said, go fight.
Which is why they have their lowest approval rating
Yeah.
ever. It's
Or
like
during the
21%
election-
or something.
Yeah, to that point, during the election, they would walk up to somebody in the street and say, "Hey, do you think such and such?" And such? Oh, that's terrible. Well, Joe Biden said that. What?
Yes. They don't know. People don't.
Who do you think said it?
Yeah. Yeah.
How many people even vote?
Well, 2/3 of the country don't vote.
But that makes sense why, the independent party is the largest party.
Well,
And it's
there used to be
unrepresented.
There used to be the Independence Party,
Right.
and Independent. And in New York State,
Can't vote.
the dirty little New York State got rid of the Independence Party, made it illegal to have anything called independence in the title.
Well, that and it's a close primary.
And they used to allow, there was a thing called the Wilson Pakula. So I'm a Democrat, right? And he's the chairman of the Conservative Party. And they don't have a candidate they like, but he likes
I can
me.
put you on the.
So he
well,
says, I'm going to give you the Wilson Pakula and you're our guy. Now, you could get primaried by somebody from that party,
Yeah.
but that party's backing you even though you're not part of it. They got rid of that as well. So if there's no more Wilson Pakula, you get picked by
Yeah.
the party. I can't challenge you.
And,
Maybe the Wilson-
and it's a closed primary. So if you're an independent or a conservative or a libertarian, you can't go and vote in a primary because you can only vote if you're a Democrat or a Republican.
That's right. You know how when I won my first seat in the Albany County Legislature, I was an Independence Party member. I had the Independence line, the Conservative line, and the Working Families line. Now, how do you get the Working Families and Conservatives unbeknown to me because they're about this far apart from each other, right?
But didn't JFK get the working family? RFK get the working families line in Michigan?
Well, there's a.
How is he not
No,
allowed
there's
to
a-
primary?
There's now a very liberal, Bobby Kennedy party or organization or something. It's one of the Kennedys, and it's just a bunch of far left crazy lunatics. And they're under another. See that what they do is they put themselves under all these umbrellas, so that there's more, more different organizations can spend more money, more people will go out and get petitions, whatever. But when I won, I was the first guy ever to win in the Albany County Legislature anywhere as an Independence Party member. I beat the Democrats.
And because of that, they got rid of it.
No, so what happened is after so what happened was after about a year, without them letting me even get into a meeting, I had to sit out in the hallway because I couldn't get in any caucus. Nobody wanted to deal with the one guy. I went back to being a Democrat.
So you were a county chairman person before you were the city of Cohoes,
So I was a county legislator,
before you were the mayor.
and then I became chairman of the Albany County
Okay.
Legislature. Then I became the mayor.
I didn't realize that was your ascension to eventually becoming mayor.
Truthfully, I had no desire to be in politics. I was the president of the union.
I remember I met you as a president when we were
and
doing
I was-
recycling
I
event.
was fighting all of these battles on the union front, and I was getting sick and tired of having these phony bastards, take my donations from the union and then stick it in our asses, right? So one day I got in an argument with John McDonald, who was the mayor of Cohoes. And I said to him, John, I'm sick and tired of this shit. I'm going to run against your people. I'm going to then be in the same room with you, and you're going to be able to throw me out because he threw me out of his office. And I ran, and I won. And then I worked my way up, and I became I was the chairman of the Independence Party for Cohoes, which when I started, there was 11 of us. When I left, there was 500 of us, because I went out and registered all these people. And then I won my elections. And
Is that party still alive?
no,
and well?
because what happened was not enough people voted on that line, so they got rid.
it goes away.
You have to have X. And once they got rid of it, they made laws.
I think the current mayor, though, didn't he run like as a conservative and a Democrat?
So what happened was
Keeler?
Keeler?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
well,
so.
after I won my elections, I used to get all the lines, so nobody could run against me. They'd give me every line. That's New York politics, right?
How does that even work?
How does that-
Yeah, the only one I wouldn't take was the Republican line.
That's like having a coexist bumper sticker.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
used to
and
say,
burning your Tesla while you're
They're all
at it.
conflicting
well, how the hell can I be
ideologies.
part of the labor movement and be the conservative
That,
guy?
I have to say that is the dumbest sticker there is, the coexist sticker.
Well, that's why, people used to say, what's your favorite color? I'd say plaid.
Yeah,
Because, you don't know what the hell, you don't want to piss nobody off, right?
yeah.
But that's how the politics works. And then once you get in, you can't get out. And then, they look at the numbers and then they redistrict the lines and they move people out of their neighborhoods. And it's the dirtiest game. I sat in the back rooms, just like a room like this.
They just did that to the 21st
Yeah, they're redistricting everywhere. And that was
Saratoga, because Tonko is now further up than he was.
But Tonko and them redistrict. So what they do is they move themselves a little further up. With they put 45 Republicans in with the 5,000 Democrats.
Yeah, because he wants to try to move into the Saratoga.
Well, they're all moving so that they can.
Saratoga.
Well,
They
what
can get more
happens is,
blue.
if you're in trouble,
Yeah.
because you're going to lose, we all just keep moving a little bit. We take on a little bit of the enemy, but give you enough room where
Yeah.
you now have enough to get you elected. So when they say,
Or they just move you to they out somebody they don't like and put you in the same
Yeah,
district,
well, the
like they
bottom-
did to Tedesco and
well,
Daphne
that's what they
Jordan.
do when they term limit. If they don't like you, they put you into the same district. But what they do is, if you're a Republican, they move you into the district with all the Democrats. And so you're not going to win because the Republicans aren't going to get the votes. I watched that dirty game. I sat in the back room. I watched the dirty games. I watched whatever. I remember this, and I'm not going to say the names, but I'm a pretty straight shooting guy, right? I didn't get in politics to make friends. I never hung out with these people. I wouldn't drink beer with these people. I was there for my people, right? The unions, the Cahos, people I knew. But I didn't want to be a scumbag. But I was a tough, strong advocate, man. And I became the
A man of the people.
I became the chairman of the legislature against all odds, because the way the legislature itself votes for the chairman. I'm from Cahos. I only got 2 votes. Everybody else who's the chairman comes out of Albany because they get 12 votes. Colony gets 11 votes. You can't win from Cahos. I won.
So you're a big union guy.
I'm a big union guy, but I don't I also don't believe that the unions are always always do the right thing. I always believed that everybody here has a right to bargain for their toll.
Because I'm going somewhere with this. Not on a get you though. It's gonna sound like a get you,
But
but it's not. No, I'm just
It's gonna
saying.
sound like
It's gonna sound like a get you. What kind of car do you have?
What kind of car do I drive? A Kia.
So why would you drive a non-union made car
I did, 'cause
and
I
be
just
so
don't-
pro-union?
Because there is no American.
You can buy a union made car.
Well,
my truck is made in
Any
Kentucky.
that's right. Any American cars made by the UAW.
you ain't gonna get me.
There is
I
no
also-
foreign car made by
I
the
also shopped at
UAW.
Walmart.
What's that nothing to do with it?
Well, they're anti-union.
Well, it doesn't matter. There's no unionized
Well, yeah, it was.
franchise.
There used to be a lot of unionized.
So they don't have
But
to pay.
there isn't anymore.
No,
so
but-
it's not
but-
like you have a choice.
That's why they keep a lot of them part time.
No, but here's the difference. Walmart would spend billions of dollars to keep them from being union.
The point is, you bought a
I
car
never-
made
listen, I
by a
didn't-
non-union shop.
I didn't tell you that being in the union makes you perfect.
Because that's my biggest pet peeve that I have with people that are so pro-union and they go around and buy a non-union made car.
Well, you could be pro-union and still have to pay what you can afford.
Well, it's being a hypocrite if you ask me.
Well, that's okay. You can
I'm
say
saying
that.
you are. I'm saying people. Like, there's a guy I see every day at Stewart's, and he aggravates the living shit out of me. He has his big Union Brotherhood sticker on the back
Got the short hat.
on his fucking Toyota, and I'm like, "Why? You're a hypocrite." He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "You're touting your union thing, and you want us to buy union, pay union wages and pay union benefits, and you're going to buy your
Well, I can
non-union
tell
made
you this.
Toyota."
I can tell you this.
Oh, you don't understand? Yeah, I
That's like
understand.
the Korean War veteran tag on the Kia.
Yeah, kills me.
Look,
Kills me.
I'll tell you this. There was a time that I would only buy union, especially when I was the union president.
Yeah.
I wouldn't buy anything that I couldn't get that wasn't, if it wasn't made union, I wouldn't buy it. Now, as I got older and I don't have as much money and I have to be a little more frugal, I buy things that I can afford to buy. And that doesn't make me less of a union guy.
So
But I also-
so to that point,
Yeah.
you don't think that's why GM is going out of business? 'Cause
No.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
No, I don't think it is. And I don't think GM's going to go out of business.
I hate to tell you, but they are hurting.
Well, next year when we come back on the podcast-
Stellantis is closing plants because
Well, look, they've been
they
closing
can't afford
plants. They've been-
because they can't afford to make
Listen,
vehicles.
They've been closing plants forever. They've been moving plants outside of the United States forever because
Why?
it's all-
Because they can get
profit.
away. They can get away from.
Listen, You
if
gotta-
it
you
if
gotta-
it costs you for every car that's made, you have, for example, I'm going to use a PFA number. You have $15,000 of wages and benefits into the car. Yet China and Japan and all these cars that come in here on fed that are non-union made only have $5,000 of benefits in it. They can afford to sell a car, and you can't afford to build it. So what happens? GM, Chrysler, and Ford stop making cars, and the
GM,
only thing they
Chrysler,
make now
Ford.
are trucks that people spend tons of money and they can make money on.
Those companies been subsidized by the United
One
States.
has
worker
nothing to
forever.
do with the
Yes,
other.
does.
No, it
Yes,
doesn't.
does.
Well, ultimately, though,
does.
it's about the devaluation of the dollar, and that's why they've
That's what's
sent all.
happening.
That's why they've sent all this stuff overseas, in the guise of fair trade and equality and this and that. It's because the dollar is devaluing so much that if they keep making things here, it becomes unaffordable. That's why a pair of Jordans costs $100, and if they made it here, it would be $400.
I like to believe all that.
because it's tough.
I like to believe all that.
The dollar's lost
But
98% of its
go look
value
at-
since 1913.
Go look at how much money the stockholders have and the CEOs are making, and then
That's when you know he's a Democrat.
Well, even the
well, they are.
stock
Why
market.
shouldn't we? You're talking about a guy trying to make $25 an hour, while the guy who runs the place is bringing home $35 million a year.
And you want to talk about manipulation, though? I mean, the stock market alone, like 90% of the stock market is owned by the
12%,
top 5%,
yeah.
something like that.
Yes, of course. And you know what?
So
you know,
we're-
who,
you
you know
know-
who owns 95% of all the companies in the world? BlackRock.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep,
So
State
every
Street.
single thing that people are talking about, car dealers, GM,
Why don't people know
Ford,
this?
but,
Because they don't
but
care.
it goes against his argument.
we're
It
busy
doesn't go
bullshit-
against,
because we're
doesn't go
busy
against my
bullshitting
argument at
about
all.
fucking
Yes, it does, because the
No, it doesn't.
majority of people that own these companies are so wealthy. BlackRock is the wealthiest people
But
in
again-
the world. But they own these companies, and if they're not going to make enough money,
Sean,
they move it.
You're
'cause
gonna
it's
you're gonna
irrelevant.
tell me that the foreign car companies aren't owned by major conglomerates?
No,
Absolutely
I'm
they are.
telling you, they're owned by BlackRock. not
Fine,
major
fine,
conglomerates.
whatever. They're still owned by big corporations. But the fact is, union-made shops can't afford to make
Well,
vehicles.
they're making them. They're making them every day. They just signed a huge contract with
they're
them.
not making
BlackRock
them.
just signed the deal with Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
To rebuild Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yeah, BlackRock with your money, with my money, it's the pensions money. BlackRock
Goddamn
makes all their money from our pensions. That's where they get all their cash. They are the biggest.
Because you're
hold-
investing in
Well, because they're
Yeah,
they're
Yeah, 'cause
investing.
they own
Sure.
Right.
Apple,
They
they
own
own,
the
the
investments.
majority
Right,
stakes in all
they
these
are
companies.
they started out with pensions, like a pension fund.
I think BlackRock started off as a.
I think they started as a pension.
No,
fund.
I think it was a real estate.
And well, they
check,
own,
check it if you want, but
they're
I think,
buying up.
I think it was real estate. They started in real estate.
and they're buying up all the.
they may
the
have
houses.
diversified into that, or vice versa. I know they're the one of the largest holdings of
Well, they're
of
the
single,
single homes.
single family houses in
Yeah.
the U.S. Yeah.
And on top of that, now they are going to be the controlling
Yeah, see,
company of the ports going into the Panama Canal and exiting the Panama Canal.
before it became BlackRock,
Yeah,
the company was initially known as Blackstone Financial Management.
Blackstone. Okay,
And they managed.
so they
pensions.
did that, and then they became a.
So
a-
all of the pensions.
I knew it was one of the other.
All
You're
the
right.
pensions that we talked.
You were right.
I'm
You're
always
right. You're
Yeah, God.
all of the pensions that we've been talking about forever were all funded or all operated under Blackstone. And they got wealthy as hell from all these pensions. And then they took all that money and got smart, right? And now they invest your money. They invest all pension money into all of these other assets.
Well, it's the same thing
And
that
one of the
that
prob-
DiNapoli does. He
one of-
takes your money and invests it.
One of the problems is that
But BlackRock is
Black-
a majority stakeholder in
In every-
all
Sure,
of
absolutely.
these
'Cause they have
companies.
money. They have money. Tons of
and
money.
they will invest in 95% of all of these woke companies. And you can't do
Well, of
anything
course.
about it.
That's what they do.
And you're arguing, you're taking my money, supporting things that I don't support.
Sure.
DiNapoli can't obviously do that because guess what? He's held accountable to the voters. So he has to be a little more cautious, right?
And what do you invest in if they own the majority stake in all these companies?
Yeah.
Now it's like
And I can't find a company.
double dipped to the nth degree.
Right. I can't find a company
Yeah.
that they don't own the majority share of stock.
Yeah.
And they are the evil empire. They are the ones that control all of the woke agendas, all of the decisions made in these corporations, nobody
Of
ships.
course, because they put forth their modus operandi, and they say you either go, you, you either
They
follow
push the
this, or else
DEI.
we're going to pull money out, or we're going to put money in someplace else.
Of course.
Yeah,
Well,
they market manipulate based on ideology.
It's corrupt what they do.
Sure.
And there's no way they should be able to do it. And again, it's your 401k that they're controlling. And it's yours and it's mine. And it's the pension systems in California, New York, all the unions, everywhere. They own it all. They're the most corrupt, evil empire on this earth. And every bad decision that comes out of corporate America, including that girl on that beer can for Bud Light,
It wasn't a girl.
well, whatever she said she was. Whatever,
Moldavie?
whatever that was, they pushed it. And that's the problem that we have. And pensions, pensions struggle under BlackRock.
Change the name of this one. It's called pensions now.
Pensions.
It's a big topic because I think a lot of people out there today are looking and saying, my God, this 401k, I'm not going to pay some.
I'm gonna bring it back
And
there
hopefully
because we started with tariffs and Trump, so I just want to bring it back and close it out with that. I just want to give you a little anecdotal why I strongly agree with what Trump's doing with tariffs. I'm a big proponent of America first and manufacturing this country. So I was watching a video, and it was, I think I said it before, but another podcast. It was a foundry. I think it was in Pakistan or India or whatever. It was an open air foundry. They're making these giant gears. I mean, the size of this room, these gears for these giant ships or whatnot. And it was open air. They were wearing sandals and they were wearing the traditional garb out there. And they were pouring the molds were made of the beach sand. They were on a beach, no environmental issue, protection, nothing, no OSHA. And they were pouring these and casting these massive gears. How would an American company compete against something like that if it wasn't for tariffs?
It's like,
And that's what he's trying to fight, is that, listen, you can't be manufacturing like that when we are paying our employees 100 times more. We have OSHA, we have environmental practices, we have,
it's like
everything.
fighting with your hands tied behind.
Well,
you.
I think Trump has said it 1,000 times, and I think anybody with a reasonable brain.
Well, there is nobody with a reasonable brain. That's the problem.
Well, we have reasonable brains. I'm saying
We're the
there
minority.
there are people with reasonable brains who understand that all these regulations are really what ties us down. Because just like you said,
The red tape.
before this piece can even get past here, it's got to go through 50 different
Sure.
channels that cost $50 different million. And then by the time you try to sell it, you can't compete with a company that says, yeah, we don't care if you use dirty sneakers. We do what you want.
Yes, I was-
China, Russia, all
Or
those-
your city burns down because of the smell. too.
yeah, they don't care. They just don't care.
It's
But we care.
Well,
So-
the thing is, most people are not cognitive or don't understand how that works. So they're like, oh, tariffs are bad. Oh my God, you can't do. Well, the reason why you need tariffs is because you're going to lose what you have.
I think the biggest.
And tariffs are constitutional. That is how the founders designed our government to be funded.
That's how we funded it.
That's how we funded the
that's how
government.
it was intended. It was like we fought a revolution against the largest empire in the world over a 1% increase in tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know
One
what I
of the
mean?
problems-
Taxes was not part of the goal here.
One of the-
Actually, do you know that we almost lost the our new founding country about 5 years after over the whiskey tax?
The Whiskey
in,
Rebellion.
in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
The Quakers rebelled, and Washington had to send colonial
Yeah, because
soldiers
they,
in
they taxed the whiskey.
because they taxed the whiskey 2%.
So I was drinking so much whiskey. I
Yeah.
didn't even know that.
So to think that
And now
we
we just willingly give
Yeah.
50% of our check away.
yeah,
But
it's crazy.
I think the worst thing that's happening to this country that could change for the better is that we're allowed to sell our goods to the countries that don't let us sell our goods.
And
We wouldn't have to worry about a lot of things.
Mhm.
Cars,
Mhm.
unions, a lot of things, because now we have such a broader opportunity to sell them, right? So when you have a car that's made from Ford, let's say, that has a union, and you can't sell it to, 10 other
No,
countries. 15
you
other countries.
can't sell an American car in Europe.
Yeah,
Period. Right now.
you just, and Trump understands that.
Yeah.
He understands that prosperity comes when we can trade all of our goods with everybody, right?
And back to like your earlier point about how Trump said even if we do zero to zero tariffs,
Doesn't count, doesn't matter.
we still need something for something here, and like that goes with like the Ukraine thing and the mineral rights and all that. Like that's how we're gonna get our money back. is through the mineral rights in Ukraine.
So Europe came back and said that they wanted to go 0 for 0, and Trump said, "Well, that's great,
Yeah.
but for us to move forward on this, you have to agree to buy all of our liquefied natural gas
Yeah, he's
as part of the deal."
he recognized.
Cutting out Russia.
Yeah.
Well, he recognizes that some of the stuff, even he's not going to be able to get. Right? They're not going to buy our. They're just not going to buy our food that's to them poison.
And
And
him,
they're
just
probably
him.
not-
Well, and let's hope that with
But he can sell-
Kennedy, that will
Right.
change
Right.
eventually.
But he can sell energy.
Yeah.
He can sell a lot of other things, right? We can sell, other foods that aren't poisonous.
Our liquor.
Our liquor, cars.
Hopefully Kennedy will fix the food. Though.
I think the car thing, because that is a debate that I understand your side, even though I don't 100% agree. They need to open it up, otherwise
Whoa.
some of these.
I'm coming, Martha.
But what I do understand the point, but I also understand the failure to make a good living puts people in a bad way for 100 other things.
Sure.
The bottom line is, if we make a car here,
But trade will only help that.
right? If Mercedes-Benz can come over here with their car, then we should be able to go over there with our car.
Yes.
That's simple.
And they are one of the many
So-
companies that said they're building a plant here.
Did you
Yeah.
see today, Land Rover and Jaguar have ceased sending cars to the United States until they figure out the tariffs.
Well, Mercedes-Benz was going to do the same thing, and then they decided they won't raise the
Yeah.
price.
Well, no, the thing is,
They all
well,
buckled real fast.
well, specifically Land Rover and Jaguar, because they aren't they aren't a UK company. They're owned by Tata Motor Group,
yeah, and
which is
India.
Indian, and India has like a 40% tariff
40.
Mhm.
right now
How many
until
years it's
until
been-
that changes, and,
prior-
that affects those particular cars.
But think about
Prior to
those,
that, Ford owned both those companies.
Yes, as a matter of
think
fact, they
about
did.
those cars. No union, but a Mercedes-Benz is $100,000, right?
Well, you're buying. Well, look at.
Prestige.
A Land
Yes,
Rover.
and
Look, I owned a Mercedes-Benz. They ain't so prestigious, right? Soon as the guy
They
told
all-
me,
they all
soon as the
go
guy
on
told me that it
flatbed.
was $6,000 to put brakes on it, I realized I
So
had it.
back to your point. So back in the '80s, my father worked for a company called Lansing Bagnall, and they used to make forklift trucks and you know, material handlers for big corporations, for big companies or big plants. And he worked in Detroit, specifically at GM, and he was in a meeting one time when they were setting up the plant for automation. And one of the things that came out at the time, they made the Pontiac Parisian. It was a giant boat of a car. It was like the Chevy Caprice, but it came off the same assembly line as the Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham, which is the same exact car, same G body, whatever. It only cost General Motors $75 more to make the Cadillac than it did the
But you sell the,
Pontiac
you're selling the
Parisian,
nameplate.
but it was about a $30,000 price tag difference between the two cars. So the fact that you said Mercedes, it's just because it's the name.
I understand.
Same
I'm
one-
just saying,
yeah,
but
same
people,
reason
So I just want to bring up context
but
why
people,
that is the
people in
case.
this country are willing to pay for them. That's
Sure,
all I'm saying.
absolutely.
Just
They
like-
want the name.
Right.
Yeah.
They're willing to pay for them.
Yeah.
Just like, and I'm going to get them all screwed up because I'm not 100% sure, but I think Honda owns Acura, don't they?
Yes.
Acura.
Okay.
Just like Lexus is Toyota.
Yeah. So you have a Honda, and you have the same shit except for they changed the logo on it, and you're paying twice as much for the same car.
Which is funny too, because America is the only place where those two companies exist.
Yeah. And
Really?
Acura and
Yeah,
Lexus.
because it's really
Because
just
everywhere else they're Honda and Toyota.
that's right. Because but people, it's just like, what do they call it? White boxing, right? You can buy a computer and put your own brand on it.
Yeah. Private labeling.
Right, and if you can sell that brand, if you make that brand sexy and like everybody wants it, you'll sell it for $200 more than the other one, and it's the same exact computer.
Well, you remember back in the '80s, they had that they had the Chevy Cavalier, and Cadillac came out with exactly the same car, except just different badge and different well, Cadillac badging, but different chrome and different spots and stuff. It was essentially the same as that car, but they rebranded it as a
Well-
Cadillac. It's one with that had a duck in the logo backwards in the Cadillac.
You know who the #1 rebrander is? It's the food industry. You go to Price Chopper and you
It's all-
buy
yeah.
the Price Chopper brand.
It's all made by the
it's
one
90 cents.
It's made by
And-
General Mills.
Right,
Yeah.
and you go over and get the Green Giant, and it's the same corn, and it's $2.50.
You get your Fruit Loops by Malto
And
Meal.
then you're standing there, you're watching people go, the Green Giant, they won't touch the Price Chopper because it's like the stigma. Or if you go, what's it, Aldi's, and you go to Aldi's and you buy corn that says, Joe.
Although I have to disagree with you there, because I've noticed, 'cause I eat cream, I love cream corn and I make shepherd's pie all the time. If you buy specifically all these brand cream corn and you buy, let's say, Del Monte cream corn, there's a lot more corn and it's a lot less
No,
watery than
Lot
all
more-
these
no,
brands.
I didn't
Yeah.
say that. I was saying stigma. That's why people
Yeah.
don't shop at
Yeah, yeah.
Aldi's. I go to Aldi's. They got some stuff better than Price Chopper, but
I think their fruits and vegetables are great at
you
all.
got to pick and choose.
Don't get your dairy, because the dairy is also
Yeah, and I would never buy.
Yeah.
Look at I.
That's a German-owned grocery
Yeah.
store.
German or Dutch, yeah.
I go to Price Chopper.
Oh, Hannaford's owned by the Dutch.
I buy the Price Chopper.
Food Lion.
all the time. Food Lion.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hannaford Brothers
Because
was sold
I
back
used
in
to
the 90s.
have when I was in the city, Cohoes, I was working to bring a Hannaford to the city,
I remember that.
and
You want to get rid of Ghetto Chopper?
no, so I met with Price Chopper, and they were really excited about what was happening in the city.
Where would they have put it though?
Well, they were going to put it down on 787, 35,000 cars a
That-
day on the corner
Yeah, where that Hoffman's
where
is
the
now.
Hoffman's is,
Really? Okay.
and
There's enough place there for
yeah,
a price
yeah,
shopper?
because we were going to take that street. It would have been there.
Oh,
We
okay.
had to go down. I mean,
I
we
got
had
you.
to do some maneuvering, but they really wanted to come, and unfortunately, they were like, Sean, we're in a bad way because we just built Water Elite, and there's only so many people,
Yeah.
and you could have a super center here, then a super center here, so they kind of balked at it, and then
Because that's pretty close, actually.
yeah, it was too close.
Yeah.
It really was. And so we were talking to Hannaford about building one in the downtown. And it was going to be Hannaford on the Go. It was one of their new ones that they were starting to come up with. And I don't know how it fell through because I was no longer in office. But
That was one thing I always thought was really cool in New York City, was you could go to New York City and there were like supermarkets at like bottom floors of
yeah, we had
high rises.
We were there.
That was always cool.
We were getting ready. I mean, we were close. And
Unfortunately, Remsen Street has really gone back down.
well, it went from
really happening.
4 years ago. The only thing we were concerned about is where we were going to park because there was no parking.
Now
Now
it's-
this guy's destroyed it. But watch Truth Lies and Political Bullshit tomorrow. It's going to be a
To
good
get
show.
the
Alright.
real scoop.
Well, we got to
Tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday, that's right.
Yeah, we have a guest. Every once in a while, somebody who's tired of taking the shit says I'm done, and they come out and talk. And it's
Yeah.
a business owner who's down on Ransom Street that said I've been here for so many years, and it's just the worst I've ever seen it.
It
And
seems like every other day there's a
yeah, there's all kinds
somebody
of
going down or going out down there.
Yeah,
I mean, there was a lot of nice businesses down
but
there.
it was a good mayor who brought them all.
I mean, you had to deal with Proctor, yeah.
You had the
Uh,
downtown thing on Fridays.
We
Shut down the street.
Yeah, that was great. We went
Yeah.
down there so many times for that.
We had the city rocking and rolling, and unfortunately, I tell people all the time, just because you think somebody's going to do better, my whole thing was that I would have been there forever if I didn't have the issues that I ended up having. But,
Yeah, but you did good.
I feel bad for
You were
the
too
city.
Trumpy.
Yeah, well, I just
He
didn't
was
get
too
along with
Trumpy.
all the Democrats.
Well, unfortunately, the problem is, and like I've said before with Trump, is he is changing the way I almost want to say generational ways of government being done. I mean, years of establishments are being destroyed,
Yeah.
very, very quickly. This is not a grad. This is like, a wrecking ball type of affair
Did you
here.
know Cohoes was the fastest growing city in New York State 2 years in a row?
Really?
That's how much stuff we were getting done, and people moving in to the high end apartments on Ransom Street. We had a great plan; it was working well.
I think the Mills is probably the nicest thing that ever happened.
Well, I think what's even nicer is if you went down to Ransom Street and seen all of these apartments above these.
Yeah, well, I
Oh, you
just
have to-
I happen to like the architecture
Yeah,
of
you
the
have
Mills.
to you have to see these things.
Yeah.
These are gorgeous. Sadly, you're right. I didn't want to play politics. I wanted to build a city, and that pissed off a lot of people Cuomo being one of them.
Yeah, you
as
can't
know.
do things too so
He's
fast.
gonna
and
win,
make
you know.
such changes. You know?
He's gonna win.
Well, here's a guy that fondled women and everything else that he did, and he's going to win because people in New York City are morons, and women are going to vote for him. It's almost like, you know, the Night Stalker who was getting women sending him letters that wanted to marry him while he was cutting their tongues out in in real life. I
Sto-
mean,
it's like New York has Stockholm syndrome.
But did you see that? I think it was a UK leader who came out and said that globalization is dead.
Yes,
Because
she
of
was
Trump.
the previous woman.
why?
Because of Trump. Trump is
Trump and his
destroying
tariffs says
globalization.
globalization is done.
yeah, I don't know if it's done, but I do know one thing.
Well, Klaus Schwab just stepped down from the
I think it's certainly changed.
WEF.
I think it's changed. Look at you have to. First of all,
Well, did you
Trump
see?
has balls that most guys don't.
Yeah, and a back.
He's also got an advantage because he can't run again. And when he says he wants to run for a third term, it turns me off.
No, but I think what he says
busting balls.
he says that just to get people fucking going.
But you know what? He gets his own people that go, you know, maybe he is nuts.
I know.
Maybe, for me, I just want to hear him say, I can't run another term, so I'm going to be the wrecking ball, and I'm going to fix.
Franklin Delano did
I know, but we can't no more. And to make it sound, I mean,
because of him.
yeah, and everybody.
Was it him or was it
was-
FDR?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, Franklin Delano
Franklin-
Roosevelt.
Oh, that who you said?
Yes, yes,
Who did you say?
Franklin Delano.
Oh, I didn't catch that. That sounded like I thought it was Delano.
But the bottom line is, he should have just come out and said, I don't need a third term. I'll have it all fixed in 4 years. And the next Republican can run the country. But he just does shit that aggravates me as much as I like what he does.
And here we are talking about.
Yeah.
But I think he says that just to keep people on their toes, just to keep them back on their
It's-
heels.
I'd like to think
spotlight
of it.
thing.
Sometimes I
He
think,
says something, and
sometimes I think he's so fucking stuck on himself.
or I mean, a lot of
Well,
it,
listen, you have to be doing that.
a lot of it too is he says something to see how they react,
He loves that.
I think
He
some
loves
of it,
he loves engaging
how the
people.
deep state reacts to the things he says.
Yeah, but
See, I think that whole signal thing was a plant
Well, yeah,
to see who was on his team or who was listening.
because that was Biden too who made the signal
Yeah.
thing part of the.
I
government.
think that was all planned.
boy, it was stupid though.
And then the guy who
It was
added,
stupid.
but the guy who yeah, but then there was nothing even.
It doesn't matter what's on there. The fact that guy would slip into there makes you a little.
But the guy who added that reporter to the call, did you see his thing? That he's like, it's almost like a Chinese national. He's like a head of like Waltz's national defense team or something like that, and his wife is like got all these like Chinese, like they're all like very Chinese affiliated.
Was it Swalwell's girlfriend's mother?
Yeah, right.
I might even have a.
But I think it was to find out who.
The bottom line, though, you got to admit, whatever it was,
You got to smoke out the rats.
yeah, that's a shitty way to do it, though. Because regardless,
Well, the thing is that there was nothing said in that.
no,
But if anything, to me, what I took away from that whole signal thread that they were talking about was that you actually had
That guy.
that's him, yeah. You actually had the head of his
Figures.
cabinet that were actually really not being yes men, but contemplating: should we do this? Should we do that? What's the game plan? How are we going to show this to American people? So it showed that yes, there was thought, there was engagement,
but does
and
it show incompetence if in fact it wasn't a setup?
So
well, we'll never know if it was a setup or not.
So listen to this. So Alex Wong, who's the
Alex Wan,
Wong,
don't fuck with the Wans.
Wong's.
the Chinese
He
deputy,
was Wong.
the Chinese deputy national security advisor, is married to U.S. Attorney Candace Chu Wong, a Chinese woman who was one of the key attorneys involved in prosecuting J6ers.
Yeah, there was deep state stuff in there.
That's what I'm
She
saying.
worked under the
But
Obama and Biden administration.
How else would they have outed
Well,
him?
I guess like you're
and the
pretty
United
efficient.
States District
I
of
imagine you would
Columbia.
have looked at all the names first and said, first of all,
Yeah, but
I
what,
wouldn't
yeah,
have
but,
done
what,
initials.
but what it said is the phone number did not match the name on the
no,
phone.
because there was no names. It's just initials.
Yeah,
So the stupidest thing in the world is to have a secret email that somebody could slip something in with an initial, and you'd be like, oh, okay, that's.
no, but that would be like me saying, I invite SM to the podcast. SM comes in, but it's not really your phone number to SM. I wouldn't know that until you blast
That's
out.
why I would never have initials.
or signal that you and I and
Yes, or there'd be code names.
maybe that's part of it too.
Right? There'd be a code name for people.
I think the problem is there's so much
gave-
nefarious shit going on
Yeah.
that we're just seeing the cream that
It-
rises to the
It
top.
gave the media and the Democrats a week to take his train that was running smooth.
But
on
what
those
what
tracks.
was he doing on that week? He was implementing tariffs all over.
No,
the
I
place.
get it, but
Change the
but
media
again,
narrative.
Yeah.
but it gave them a chance to beat him up and make him look stupid, and the media,
He doesn't care
he doesn't. But
And
just-
ultimately, what did they
if you
gain or
look-
lose?
If you look right now, right, some of his numbers are dropping pretty good.
because people listen to the news.
My point is, don't give them anything that this
Listen,
news.
you can't upset the apple cart the way he's doing without certain people,
You're
even staunch
You're going to piss
supporters
people off.
aren't going to say,
That's why if I'm gonna piss him off, I'm gonna piss him off on my own. I'm not gonna piss him off by putting the wrong.
yeah, but
fucking
if you
guy.
don't know who's good and bad on your side,
But if you're the national security advisor, you better know who's good and bad on your side.
listen, Trump thought the people he put in there his first term were all on his side. General
Look, I
Milley,
did that when I was the mayor. I had people that stayed that were undermining everything I did.
yeah. So you know, but
So-
if you
so
don't
the-
know, and this is the only way to out
No,
these people,
But I think that's different. You're talking about
uh,
getting ready to
I
do
think it's-
certain
I think it's
things.
just at different levels.
Yeah, well, again, get rid of the SMs and the HRs and the PPs.
Well,
and-
I to your point, I
Put a-
think stuff like that should be all done in person,
yeah,
not over electronic text. I agree with you there.
it's just.
But the problem is we're so mobile today, and people are so quick to use a text.
I get it. 'Cause
You know,
I've texted
And a more
people.
sophisticated version.
I may have texted you, and then I go to text somebody else, and I retext you.
I've done that
You'd be
many
like,
times.
Really, Sean? That's why you're in Florida?
I'm an asshole.
Yeah, because it happens. I've texted people and oh fuck, how do you can't
Yeah.
pull that back.
I'm just lucky I never sent a dick pic to the wrong person.
No, you did. You said it, but we didn't.
Oh,
want to
damn it!
We didn't want to tell you how small it was.
So if you turn back
Small,
to
but
the
it's
screen here,
it's small, but it's cute.
You got real issues, man. I'm gonna have to unionize you.
bulky but carrying.
Well, hey, listen, it was great to see you guys.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
I missed these. These are some great debates. I think people enjoy them, and
Stop going to Florida so much so we can do this.
I can.
Well, hopefully we'll try to do a Zoom one
I can
time.
do a remote.
Yeah, I'm gonna have my IT guys gonna be here tomorrow to do some backdoor stuff for the sound and the logos and
And you're
get.
worried about me not knowing what I'm doing at 57, and you backdooring your.
Oh my
stuff
God!
tomorrow?
I knew as soon as I said it, I was gonna get in trouble. Back office stuff.
It's 2025.
That's right. I'm okay. But be that as it may.
Gonna put the Trump thing on his back.
He's a Renaissance man.
Wow, you're getting in on this there.
Yeah.
Jumping on the bandwagon.
Go on, go do your Brokeback Mountain stuff. But yeah, so hopefully next time we come in, we're gonna have intro music and some logos
get
going.
fancy?
And yeah, this is it's taking time, but it's starting to coalesce. I think you've noticed stuff within the
I think
studio.
it's a great
and-
show. I really enjoyed the debates. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot to debate, and it's good to see people have different.
well, the whole
points of
point is to talk about stuff. You know, we can't all have the same opinion. If not, we're just
Well, the shittiest podcast is when it's scripted and everybody's talking
yeah,
about the same
and,
stuff.
yeah.
You can tell this wasn't scripted. I tried
Yeah.
to jump over, but there's a little nail here and it caught my shirt.
The echo chamber
couldn't
gets
get
old.
I couldn't get over to get him.
Nice.